and welcome to the Old Man Orange podcast. I'm Spencer Scott Holmes, and this week Ryan Dunigan's not here, but I got a special guest on the show, and we're going to be talking all about working out and real cool stuff like that. And he's got an amazing book about it, but I want to have him kind of give his little intro spiel, so I'm going to pass it to you. Luthra, you give it away.
Hi, Spence. Thanks for having me. My name is G.S. Luthra. I'm the author of the book Muscle Mass Without a Gym, and it does what exactly the title says, and it shows you a protocol on how to build muscle without ever having to leave your house. And if you're a busy working guy like me, you know, you go to school or you got work or whatever, it comes in handy a lot, and you save a lot of time and money. So this evolved out of necessity because I was doing my MBA at the university, and I noticed that it would take me like 25 minutes or half an hour or so just to get to campus to use the gym. And I felt like I was wasting my time because I'm taking this hour-long, back and forth, hour-long ride just to do a workout that would take, 20 to 40 minutes or so, depending on how many people were at the gym.
Yeah.
And then, I read about a whole bunch of people, like in the past, how like the ancient Greeks and Indian wrestlers and Spartans, Romans, how they really incorporated calisthenics into their strength protocol. And I just thought, why don't I just do that? I've read other books, other material on how like bodyweight exercises can make you stronger. So I just started doing that. And I found that what I was getting from that was giving me better results. And then I mentioned in the book, I did a test where I went, I think a couple weeks or like a month it was, just doing push-ups, squats, etc. And then when I went back to the gym, I found that the weights were feeling lighter.
There's something to be said about calisthenics. Like, I myself have been doing them pretty much exclusively for almost about, now I was going to say like 4 years, but I think it's almost been about 5 or 6 years now that I did. Because I used to work at a gym for a long time because it was like, hey, I can work at a gym and I can, go here. I'm going to show up anyways. So then I can get my workouts in for free and so on. But there is something like the second I kind of was not working at the gym anymore, and then I stopped I just started working out at home, that half an hour just to drive there and a half an hour back, like that just adds up so much. And it's an hour a day that you save. And when you're at home too, it's like you don't have to really worry about anything. It's not like you really got to prepare or get dressed or, pack a lunch or whatever you need to be for the rest of the day. I just walk right outside, start working out. And when I'm done, I walk right back inside and I'm ready to go back to work or whatever I'm going to do. And that's what I just love about calisthenics. I just think it's such a magical way of working out, and just it's so simple, so primal, and it gets everything done. You get the same exact feeling, you get the same strength kind of feel, and yeah, I mean, it's like sometimes for some people it's a little bit like they got to get kind of used to it because they get so used to the weights and they get so used to the machines and almost like there's so many different variables that there is there. I think some people when they hear calisthenics are like, well, it's just push-ups and pull-ups, and squats, like. I can do that, but it's the little things that you kind of stack and learn as time goes on to kind of expand your exercises and, your leverage, and how to make them harder and how to make them more difficult. And it's really an ongoing journey.
Yeah, and you mentioned the key words right there. You said leverage, you said packing, and you also said that the little things that count. You said, all these little things like packing your clothing, the bags, you need to bring water, even the little things like forgetting to get your license, etc. All these little things take time. So even though the drive is a half an hour or so, it's all these little things you have to deal with unnecessarily because of the inconvenience of going to a gym. Now, I don't have anything against gyms.
Yeah, that's how I feel too.
It's just that this is geared towards people who don't have the financial resources for whatever reason, or it's just inconvenient for them. A gym is not for everybody. If you go to, I have a friend who goes to a really nice gym, and like he meets people, he has friends, etc. And it's good for that person who's in that circumstance. But if you were like me, or a student, or someone who's working 9 to 5 or 9 to 12 or whatever your schedule is, it helps a lot to save that time, because a lot of people who work these long hours, what happens when they do that? They get fat, they get lazy, they choose the wrong food, etc. And over time, that can cause a lot of health problems.
Oh,
So
yeah.
this is a way to help you stay fit without emptying your wallet.
Well, because that's the thing. I literally talked to two of my friends the other day, and I asked them, I'm like, you guys go to the gyms in town. Like, what's the price of these gyms nowadays? And one guy's like, one gym is bare minimum $85 a month. It's $150 if you want everything, including the pool and all those bells and whistles and so on. And then the other guy I know went to a smaller gym, and he was like, yeah, it's $70 a month. And those are those kind of things I think about. I'm like, man, that right there, if you just took that money and just put it towards your food bill of the month, you know what I mean? If anything, or just like in the entire year, I mean, you're going to be spending like at least like $800, and it's like that could go to so much stuff. And even if you really like the gym, you're almost like saving your way to buying like the weights yourself.
Exactly.
So it is kind of that weird thing where it's just like, I mean, like after like not going to the gym for a while, it's all the little things you kind of don't like. And it's like, I actually like the gym. I was one of those kind of people, like I could go to a gym and really enjoyed it, and I could like hang out with the people and talk to people, and I got along well and stuff there. But I do really like just the purity of almost working out at home. And I live on like a mountain out here in California. Like I overlook Yosemite, so right now it's all really smoky and fiery. Well, not where I'm at, but not too far off. But just being able to be out on a mountain, be on the dirt, work out, you're in the trees, there's the animals around. You don't need music. You don't need headphones because you're not trying to block anything out. In fact, everything that's around you is fantastic to have, and it really puts you in the zone. And that right there, just all those little things together kind of come together. And what I liked a lot in your book is because it reminded me like, there was things that I've read throughout like multiple books, and your book seemed to really consolidate lots of this stuff, like all into one. Like, not only were we just talking about push-ups and pull-ups, and I'm sure, did you read Convict Conditioning at all?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, Paul Wade.
Paul Wade, yeah, because that was one of the first things I kind of thought. I'm like, his book feels kind of very like in a Paul Wade fashion. So if you like Convict Conditioning, there's no way you won't like Muscle Mass without a gym.
Yeah, I've never done time in prison though.
Oh yeah, I haven't either, but that doesn't mean you can't learn from them. It's like I've read a couple of those ones, like also like Bronson, the prisoner guy, that he made a movie about him in England. He had a couple books too that I found like, what? He's got workout books? I gotta check out what these ones are like, and those were fun too. But in your book, it's like even like other things too, because you go into not only just like the working out part, because that's always one equation of it, but working out is a complicated matter. There's more things to it. You got the rest in there, you got the sleep, because that's another thing that, especially the magazines, I always noticed never mentioned that a whole lot, was the sleep. And I tell it to people all the time, I'm like, if you're working out, you need that 9 to 10. If you can get even a little bit more, that all comes in handy, because that's how your body recovers. That's the only time it's really going to recover. It's not going to do it while you're awake all day long. And if you want to really gain size, gain strength, and even just take care of your body so you can live longer, you need that sleep. And I like how you focus. It even comes back to it multiple times in paragraphs throughout your book.
Yeah, I actually say that sleep is like taking steroids.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the only time when your body grows. That's when the cellular reconfiguration takes place. It's not when you're working out. It's not when you're, downing protein shakes. Sleep is when the change happens. And even if you look at animals, like for example, you look at a lion.
Mm-hmm.
A lion sleeps like what, like 20, 25 hours a day? I wish I could do that. But, anyway, all the exercise a lion does is he sprints to catch his prey. I mean, he, throw in a claw slash here and there, and, the exercise it takes to kill the animal. Other than that, he's sleeping. Or doing nothing.
Yeah, it's just all recovery.
Exactly. Same thing with the gorillas. Same thing. Pretty much all animals. Animals don't quote work out. Their exercise is naturally done through their lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
But human beings have somehow handicap themselves with modern living, and they think that exercise is, just pumping iron. It's a very narrow definition of what exercise is. And this is the problem. And a lot of it has to do with these magazines, like you said. They just want to sell you protein powders and, whatever supplements they promise will give you gains. But, you just look at bodybuilders from the past. For example, Charles Atlas.
Mm-hmm.
He won the most handsome man reward. I mean, that's what they had back then. But he built his physique exclusively on bodyweight exercises. And back then, you didn't have steroids. You didn't have these protein powders. And you read his book, it's like a lifestyle. It's not really about all working out and feeling, no, it's just you get up in the morning, you breathe, you go outside, do some push-ups, a little bit to challenge yourself, but not overkill, because that's even worse. And that's what it is. It's just natural, healthy living. And that combined with healthy diet and adequate sleep, that's all you need.
Oh yeah, and I remember, initially early on when I worked at the gym that I did, the guy who owned it, he was like Mr. San Jose at one point, and he used to always say, he's like, never read it, don't really take too much books that are like, or like get too much information past the 80s, because he's like, the thing is once the 80s came around, that's when everybody started saying like, oh, we got to find a new way to up the ante to how to sell it, because he's like, you could take one book and you can write down everything you're going to need to know about in working out, but you can't sell magazines in that style. What are you going to put in your next issue and so on? So they always got to find those little ways to sort of change it and kind of add just these different variables in there to make it seem like, oh, it's a little bit more extreme, and we've went from Jane Fonda workout, so now we're doing Tybos, and now we're doing P90X. Like, what's the next direction you can kind of take it? Yeah, though the information kind of was already pretty dialed in between, the 40s, 50s, and 60s. Those guys, in that golden age of bodybuilding, and even in the early 1900s, they devoted their whole life to it, that by the time they were kind of older, they knew exactly like, okay, this is how it was. And it wasn't like, hey, how many books can I sell on? It's like, this is it, here it is. This is what works.
Yeah, it was a different generation. It was a different mentality then. And you just look at their feats of strength. I mean, again, Charles Atlas, I saw the picture. He was pulling a 120-ton train.
Yeah, just ridiculous stuff.
Yeah, and even there was one time where he did something with weights. He took I think it was a 70 or 75-pound dumbbell, and he pressed it, I think it was almost 100 times, like 70 or 80 times with one arm.
Oh, yeah. So, it's just ridiculous strength, all coming off, no steroids, and just like a lifestyle of just kind of devotion to training, but like enjoying it. It's just a process through it all.
Yeah, and you go to the gym or ask any of these bodybuilders to replicate these feats of strength, and 9 times out of 10, they won't be able to do it.
No, yeah, they're not generally taught too much anymore. It's the workout style is different, because a lot of these guys too they treat it more like practice. It wasn't actually even really working out. You think of like Eugene Sandow and everything like that. They would practice their almost trick lifts and their heavy lifts, for 1 or 2 reps or so, and multiple times throughout the day, just to get it really dialed in.
Right. That's what you got to do. You want strength, you just stick with 1 to 2 reps. If you want to get more muscle, then you can do sets of 5, or you could do what I mentioned in the book is the 60-40 method. You find out your maximum for a particular exercise, and then you do 60% on the first set, make sure you get plenty of rest, and then 40% on the second, and then take some days off, and then slowly increase the reps. And people think, oh, it's too easy, but no. As the weeks go by, it becomes very challenging. And people just think that just because a workout program is simple, that it doesn't work. But no, the best methods are simple.
Yeah.
when it comes to exercise or anything for that matter.
Yeah, it just seems like, yeah, you look at it's the simple methods, it's the simple diets, not going too complex. Because a lot of times I've even heard too, it's like, like say you got a magazine, they put in, they'll put like a bodybuilder's workout or an actor's workout or something like that, and it's like ultra complicated. There's like 6 exercises for like every body part, including all the small ones and stuff too. And a lot of times they say too, it's like they put that in there just to make the either the athlete or the actor just look like they're very sophisticated and they're like working out, when it's really like that's probably not even what they're doing. And they've just kind of add that in there, or if it is, it might be like a pre-contest, kind of like just that final kind of finisher before you're going on stage or you're going to go to your movie or what have you. That's not a normal everyday workout.
Right, right. I mean, the compound lifts pretty much take care of everything. If you want to do some extra work, that's pretty much for the cosmetic effect.
Mm-hmm.
You want to add your curls or what have you, but if you're doing an overhead press or clean and jerk, deadlifts, squat, etc., you don't really need to add anything else. It's just going to be overkill. Unless it's like something that's sports specific, okay.
Mm-hmm.
But otherwise, it's not really necessary.
Yeah, because
I do more when you can do less.
Exactly, you can simplify. I mean, there's a guy who, I don't know if you've ever read this guy's books before. I forgot his name, but he writes the dinosaur training ones. And
Yeah, I've heard of that book.
yeah, he's got, there's probably like 10 of them or something like that. They're very interesting, because he just kind of writes about old facts and, his own experience mixed in with kind of, bodybuilders of the past and, diets of the past and so on like that. Everything's mostly, anything from like 1900s, even 1800s to about, the 1960s, probably maximum. And I remember he talked about just like doing something where like you just focus actually only on one lift. Now he was talking about more like Olympic lifting and things like that. But he's like, you just do like, your clean and jerk or your snatch, and that's your only exercise of the week. And after a couple months, you switch to a different one, but the carryover effect actually kind of works well because you've picked these lifts that work the entire body anyways. And by focusing all your attention on it, there's something to be said about, that less is more concept, and whether you have that towards calisthenics, powerlifting, or what have you, just keeping it simple.
Yeah, that's what works. You gotta be smart and economical with how you spend your energy. And that applies to sports as well.
Yeah. And, I just feel like it for myself, too. Like, the older I've always gotten, the more and more I try to go, how much time can I save myself in everything I do? Because time is the key thing more than anything else. Everything else you feel like you almost have more of a surplus of. But time is that one you realize there's only so much in the day, every day. Every little thing I can shave 5 or 10 minutes off of will add up a bunch. And if you can get your workouts just dialed in to precisely what you need, it's just golden. It just saves you all that extra time in the long run that you need in your bank.
Yep, exactly.
One of the other things this is what I kind of liked a lot about your book too, is it touched on things like almost like exercises based off your dosha, and it's like all that, in a sense, Indian kind of philosophy towards workout. I never read that before in books, I guess, because maybe I just never ran across a book that had that, but in the certain ones I came across, that was like, oh, well, this is a cool new avenue I've never kind of read about. Like, if you want to explain on that one, because I'm assuming if I hadn't heard it until I read your book, a lot of people probably haven't heard that one yet too.
Yeah, the doshas are pretty much the Indian equivalent of the like body type thing you see in the West, like
endomorphic and
right. That's pretty much what it is, and it just tells you that, for example, if you're Vata, you're more like, I don't want to say frail, but you can more easily overexert yourself compared to others. So if you know that that's your body type, you just have to be more careful with, pushing yourself too much. It's not that you can't build muscle, it's just that you have to adjust your approach a little bit. That's all. Like, let's say a person can build muscle, 3 times a week, exercising for 40 minutes, and they feel great. But that might be a little too much for Vata. So, okay, just cut it down to 2. That's all. It's just simple, small things like that, which can give you much, much better gains.
And what's the best way for someone to figure out what their, class is out of Vata, Pitta, and Kapha?
Well, I put a link in the book that you can go and take a test. But if you just do an internet search, they have like physical traits of these body types, and you can pretty much determine just by doing your own research on the internet, just by taking these small, notifications you see on your body on how your mood is, how your preferences are for, diet and sleeping patterns, things like that. It tells you a lot, and just because you have traits of one, it doesn't mean you're just one body type. You can have traits from multiple, like you can have Pitta and you can have Vata, or you can just be more, Pitta. So you really have to just look at the traits and go from there. But it's pretty much the same thing as endomorph, ectomorph.
Yeah, and those are always ones too that like most people are more of a combination or a percentage of that. It's you're not, someone's not just straight mesomorphic or straight endomorphic. They're mostly like they got a little bit of each one and probably more of a third.
Right, right.
But you also mentioned even like I thought the other interesting thing in there is you said something about like depending on what class you were, it meant like what time of the day would almost be better for your training too. Like there was those just little elements like that. And I think that's the small things about kind of working out that's always interesting. It's just like how you can dial in just the finite stuff to really enhance your workout.
Yeah, I mean, personally for me, I mentioned in the book, I like it when it's around, like midday, like 12, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, something like that, because, I mean, for me,
Mm-hmm.
that's when the sun is at its peak and I feel the most awake and energized. I know most people recommend that you wait till the afternoon. I think it's like 4 or 5 o'clock is the most ideal time that everybody says. And I've tried that and it works pretty well. But for me personally, I like the earlier time better. The one time I don't recommend is very early in the morning because you want to ease into the day. You don't want to just put yourself into that intense mode right away because you're not in the military, you're not in the battlefield. That can wear you out over time, for your nervous system. So, you know, 10 o'clock is probably the earliest that I would, start banging out those push-ups. But, you got to do what's best for your body. Some days, especially in the summer when the sun comes out earlier, I would start a little bit sooner because, it's brighter, the sun is out. But when it gets, fall, winter, spring, etc., I usually stick to that midday time.
Well, it is that kind of thing. It's like that, from the sun, you just always feel better in it anyways. I've always even heard that phrase that said if you have to tell someone bad news, you're supposed to tell them at about noon, because at about noon, they can kind of handle that a lot more. Like the worst thing you could possibly do is tell them that at 8 o'clock at night. And
Oh,
then
good. I'll tell
just,
my girlfriend that.
yeah, then it'll just destroy you the rest of your night, your sleep, and everything like that. But at noon, you can kind of almost take bad news and go, oh, okay, well, that's not good, but it didn't affect me nearly as hard as that. So it makes sense also with working out and so on. Like I always I feel like I'm always in the habit of where I wake up, and it's not like I work out instantaneously, but it is one of the first things I seem to do before I get started on any of my work in the day and so on. And the one reason I always kind of like about working out right before I, do any work or anything like that, and I work on comic books and video editing and stuff like that, is that it working out almost like jump starts me for the rest of the day. So it's like by the time I'm done doing my workout, I'm almost amped up and ready to go, and let's just get to work and let's get things cranked out. And I kind of like that, though I do sort of miss, like I will say, that ideal time that you're talking about, that 10, 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
6, 7 years ago, I remember working out like that all the time because it was when we were going to the gym, and you'd kind of have to wait for everybody else's schedule. So we ended up going then. It was the least crowded time. And that always did make for a real nice time period. I always did like that a lot.
Yeah, don't get me started on those gyms.
And on their crowdedness and so on. It's funny because I always think like Arnold Schwarzenegger's always the one where he like wakes up and is like in the gym at 6 in the morning. I remember he mentioned that in his Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding. It's like, well, I've done that before when I used to have to open up a gym. I'd be there at 6 o'clock, so I guess I'm like, well, I'm already here. I guess I'll work out. But those are always interesting workouts that early.
Oh, you lack discipline. No.
Come on, do it now. You got it.
One more. Now.
One more rep. You can just get that
How's he doing,
motivation.
by the way? I heard he got back into the bodybuilding groove.
Well, he's always working out now because he's got Terminator 6 coming out soon. And so you always
Really?
you always catch him working out. Well, I'll say this, I like Terminator 5 quite a bit. I was really impressed with that movie.
Oh, is that the one where he fights himself?
Yeah, that's that one. And then John Connor turns out to be a bad guy
Oh yeah, I remember.
because he gets infused with the other Terminator that's kind of like the cybernetic one.
Yeah,
But
some new free creation.
yeah, exactly. But I like anything Arnold Schwarzenegger movie wise. It's like that to me is always, ever since being a little kid, that's like my favorite actor of all time.
I know, Predator,
Yep.
Total Recall, all that stuff.
All good stuff right there. But it's like those are those things that kind of like, I feel like I always look at those sort of things that inspire me to work out. You know, you see Arnold Schwarzenegger, you see Sylvester Stallone, and even like comic books and video games, like all that stuff can kind of inspire me to work out just because I look at that and go, yeah, that's what I want to kind of be like. You know, I mean, you want to be like Batman. Who doesn't want to be like Batman?
Yeah, I mean, he is a billionaire.
Yeah, exactly. That's the first step, too. Or I guess maybe that's
That
the second
inspires
step.
me.
You know, it's all those little things like that, like how to achieve more there, you know, whether it be through, and I think, you know, working out, these are the other bonuses. You still there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I thought I lost you.
Thought Skype just wanted to cut out on us. But one thing else I also just love about working out, or not one thing, many things, but is I feel that like once you kind of get the good discipline going of working out, that just transfers over into all kinds of work you do and every creative project you have and really getting things done. There's something to be said about having a good workout regimen that translates into like your business and creative life.
Yep, that's right.
You know, that just to me makes a big difference. And I think that it's like a martial arts. It's like getting that discipline. That discipline in there, you know, will control you and like in a good way, not a control in a bad way. But it will get you going. It will motivate you. It will give you, you know, you'll know to go to bed like on time because a lot of times it's like, well, I have to wake up and work out. You know, I don't want to jack my sleep up, so I'm always on schedule there. Keeps you, you know, in line with working and everything like that. I always think they complement each other really well.
Yeah, that's very important, especially these days. I mean, you look at all these kids, especially college kids, the first thing they do is when they move out of their parents' house, you know, they're living on campus or whatever, they stay up late.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they party till, you know, the crack of dawn like it's the end of the world. And all right, you know, that's nothing wrong with that, but when they do it all the time every week, it really it has a detrimental effect on your health. And a lot of these college guys want to build muscle, but they don't want to go to sleep properly.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, it's like, what do you want? You want to party or do you want to get stronger and healthier?
Yeah, because really the two don't go hand in hand.
Yeah, and they're always like, I had a roommate, well, I had many roommates, but they're always on their phone till like 2 a.m. I don't know what they're looking at on their phone or their laptop. And, you know, they're tricking their brain because you see, when it gets dark outside, your brain starts releasing chemicals to put you to sleep. But if you're blasting your eyes with, you know, crap on YouTube or whatever they do on their phone,
Mm-hmm.
your brain still thinks that it's daylight, so it keeps you awake.
Yeah, that is always such kind of like a problem too. And I know that like when people tell me that it's like, oh, I got insomnia and so on, I always want to go like, I'm pretty sure you don't have it. I'm pretty sure it comes from you're either watching too much screen, you're probably drinking way too much caffeine at nighttime. You know, like a lot of people end up causing their own insomnia and then they blame it like, oh, it's like I got something. It's like, no, it's you just got to cut certain things out as the day sort of goes on and, cut out caffeine. You know, you have caffeine maybe like in the morning, like, before your workouts or anything like that. But as the day goes on, get rid of that because it can stay in your system for like up to 12 plus hours, and I've learned myself, like, I'll have like a glass of iced tea at 7 o'clock at night. The worst thing I possibly do for me. Like, I won't be able to go to bed till like 2 a.m. So it's like, nope, I just cut it out.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, I'm not surprised to hear that.
yeah, just like, nope, no whatsoever. Because I had like,
yeah, and that among other things, like I had another roommate who was trying to build muscle. This guy was as skinny as a rail.
Mm-hmm.
His approach to build muscle was to eat buffalo wings and just junk all the time. And he would go off partying late at night, and he thought that just by eating these buffalo wings or whatever junk he was eating, because it was high calorie, he thought that he was going to gain weight. I said, "Are you out of your freaking mind? You want to die?"
These are probably the guys, they read one article and they're like, "I'm good." They saw an article and like, "You need to eat high calories to gain," and that's all they saw. Maybe they just saw the headline and didn't go any farther.
Yeah, I don't know, but they get these wacky ideas from magazines, from the internet, all this nonsense, and there's no scientific, basis for what they're doing. And this is why I wrote this book, because I just got so tired and frustrated that everybody thinks they know what they're doing, but they don't, and the result is their body.
Well, and I think the perfect thing too is that like there's like the thing about fitness, and especially this day and age too, especially with the internet and everything like that, we're just almost like bombarded by how many different sources there is, and everybody's got 1,000 different ways to even just do something like a pull-up and a push-up, and all this stuff I think gets kind of congested, and it's almost contradictory to themselves. I mean, I've heard from like champion kind of older Mr. Olympia and guys and so on like that, where they almost sometimes say like, you pick one kind of mentor or one way and you kind of stick with it. Because the thing is, if you just keep reading different things, next thing you know, you start to almost confuse yourself on what you need to do, or you haven't even tested things out. So now you just keep testing things out and you're not even too sure anymore what's really best for your own body.
Yeah, and that's what Bruce Lee did. He just stuck with the basics. And he has a quote that went something like, "I don't fear the man with 10,000 strikes. I definitely fear the man who has practiced one strike 10,000 times."
Yep.
And, that's what it is right there. You don't need to do 1,000 different exercises. You just need a few that work, and you need to work at them.
Yeah.
That's it.
And just practice them and get those ones as dialed in as possible. Well, I know you put this book together in, was it late 2016 or something?
Yeah, it's been a while. Yeah, 16, 17.
Because I know I must have found out about it. I remember because I just ran across it on Kindle about maybe, well, I don't know, maybe, I was going to say almost maybe a year ago by now. It's just always funny how much time it's been, but it's like, oh, I guess that might have been the time I ran across it, but...
Yeah, a year feels like a light year for me because I do so much stuff.
I know, that's how I feel too. And it's just like, oh my gosh, was that really a year ago? It felt like it wasn't that long ago I read the first time I kind of cracked it open and so on. But it is that sort of thing when I just like about it is just, you just got enough. It's like the perfect one that like you could hand this one book to somebody and it would give them not only like, here's a workout plan, here's even some diet information, here's how to like, utilize the mind, how to kind of develop, your technique, all these just different little thoughts and so on, just how to add bonuses, and just ideas and just natural kind of way of like supplementing things and how to utilize the sun. And there's so much little tips in here. And there's something just kind of special about it. Like, it almost kind of reminds me of, I don't know, did you ever read Pavel's book, The Naked Warrior?
Yeah, Pavel's the man.
And what blew me away by that book, I remember when I finished reading that book, because it was like 150 pages, and I was like, this book is 150 pages on two things: one-arm push-ups and pistol squats. Like, and there's details galore. Like, that was the first time I ever seen someone go that much into detail on just two exercises. Because, sometimes you read books, it's like, yeah, you do a push-up, you get on the ground, you get in the plank position, you do a push-up, call it good. But when you can write, 75 pages on just all the littleness of how to get your push-up dialed in and how to achieve that one-arm push-up and the small things of the shoulder and the elbow and the positioning, like that kind of stuff's cool. And what I like about your book is it's almost condensed all this information through these things, and it's one easy to digest book that just kind of goes along at a nice brisk pace. It's the right size, got just the right amount of pictures in it and so on. I think it's just fantastic for that.
Yeah, one of the main goal that I wanted to achieve with that book is I want readers to start the same day. A lot of these books, they're so big and complicated that you need like a week or sometimes longer just to really get going. But when you get that book, I want people to start the same day. I don't want all this unnecessary complications. It's you found out your max, record those numbers, and pick a exercise that's gives you enough leverage that you can do the 60-40 method, or you want to do multiple sets of 5, or if you just want to build strength. So I don't want all this unnecessary confusion. I just wanted something that's quick and straightforward, directly to the point, without any fluff.
Well, that's what I kind of like. I think it's literally about like 2 or 3 pages into the book. It's like you kind of give like, boom, you do your 3 to 5 of 5, or if you want 15 to 20 of the clean reps, or you got your strengths of 1 or 2. But right at the very beginning, you're like, boom, that's kind of it. If anything, there you go. There's your money's worth right then there. You're set to go off, do it, have at it. And then from the rest of the point on, now you're just adding in all the little details that like kind of help the exercise along the way. But I just like how it's, right off the bat, if you pick this book up and you flip through it in the store and you just kind of read like 3 pages, you would at least be able to go, okay, I could just start doing some push-ups and pull-ups and squats right off the bat. And then if I want to learn more, the book just gives me all these extra little details the farther we get into it. And that's just really cool. I just kind of like that. Where, some books, it's like, you don't even get to like the workout plan till you're like page 90 or something like that. You're going through all this like intro and introduction and, the kind of the best friend giving his advice on like the guy you're reading about. And you're like, I don't know what's going on anymore.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
And that's what I just liked about it. I was just so impressed.
Yeah, I wanted to do away with all that. I purposely kept it, I think it's around 150 pages, the entire book. And I just wanted to come out, like you said, just boom, here it is. You can get started right now. And as you progress, or as you're doing your exercise, all these little details will help you take it that much further.
And really it's like, this sounds like such a funny thing, but what sold me at first, because, when I was flipping through Kindle and just seeing, you see all the books on there and you see just different body weight ones and exercise. And I like to just kind of read books just to, 1, give me just that little bit extra motivation, and 2, you never know what you're going to find in a book that might be that one point where you're like, I never thought of that before, or that's something a little bit different. But I kid you not, like when I saw the cover and it had the monkeys working out right on the cover, I'm like, I don't know I don't know if this book is good or bad, but I got to check it out. Monkeys working on the cover, I am sold already. You have got me.
Yeah. I knew that was coming.
That was one of those ones. That was one of the first things. I'm like, yep, let's check this book out. Why not? Let's see what we got. And lo and behold, here you go. Here's a totally awesome workout book. And then you do all the artwork in there too, right?
Yeah, I'm an artist, so yep, everything, that's all me.
So that's pretty cool in itself, because, that's another thing too, is like, I thought about, I'm like, you don't really see that very often where in a workout book there's actual like physical drawings. I can only think about one other book, and that's Charles Bronson's. He has some drawings inside his book as well too. I guess because you're in prison, you can just throw in some drawings because you can't really take pictures of yourself, so you can do a drawing, I guess. But beyond that, it's like, I'm like, think about it. Like, who else really has that?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to put it in. I could have took pictures of myself easily, but I think that's something that hasn't really been done anymore. It's art, and I think it gives it a more personal feel to it, more, I don't know, artistic or more authentic, vibe to it. Because the other books you see today, it's all about, how great the author is and, flexing their muscles, showing off, blah, blah, blah. But I just wanted to keep it simple. I just wanted to give it that homey feel. So the drawings, I feel, give it that old school type feeling.
Well, that's exactly what I was going to say. Is it has that feeling before, like it was easy to put pictures in books. So you would just use art instead because that was an easier thing to print. And I don't know, once again, it's just, those are those kind of small things that you don't think too much of, but then once you go, oh yeah, nobody really has done that, or at least not in a long time. So that's just kind of something neat in itself, You're just so used to always seeing, here's the bodybuilder guy, and here's him in his different poses and so on. And granted that it works, it's not saying anything against that, but it's the small things in life of like, how can you do something different?
Yeah, and I think people have had enough of that. Jack guys with their bikini babes and all that stuff. I mean, I am an AC. I could do that if I want, but it's more the same, like you said.
Yeah,
School.
Well, speaking of workouts, since this book, is almost a couple years old by now, is it? How are your workouts progressing at the moment?
Oh, I'm doing things that I've never done before. I mean, I used to do one arm push-ups when I was in college,
Hmm.
and but now it's really everything is easier. And not only that, not just strength and muscle size, but I just feel more energized. I really don't feel tired at all. And right from I get up till the end of the day, I'm just always energized. I can do a lot of work that I couldn't do before. Uh, Nowadays, I'm doing sprints on the beach, on the sand, and that really takes it further, especially for your calves.
Hmm.
And when I started out, it would kill me. I mean, I felt like I was just gonna collapse.
Yeah, and it takes
But
like 3 days to recover too. You could barely sit down anywhere.
yeah, people don't realize. I mean, when you're running on sand, it's a whole new playing field. I mean, it takes a lot more strength from your calves, from your ankles, and boy, you're gonna feel it. You feel it to the bone. I'm telling you.
Oh
But
yeah, well, because I do hill sprints here where I'm at, so I just got just different sections of the mountain that I can go on to, and that is one of my favorite exercises. It's just one of those simple and effective ones. But boy, do I miss like actually doing a beach one. It's been a long time since I've touched sand.
yeah, and the other thing is not only sand, but you can go into the water about knee high deep, and then you can run in the water, and that also takes it to a whole nother level in that way. And you really feel it. It really puts you in your place.
Oh
You
yeah,
know?
most definitely. Like the other big thing that I've been working on it for it seems like quite a while by now. I mean, almost over a year or so. But it is like progressing the one arm pull up. And it's amazing how humbling of an exercise that can sort of be. That one just takes so much practice and determination and just really utilizing all the little things and not injuring yourself while trying to get it accomplished.
Yeah, that's a very tough exercise.
Yeah, it's blown me away like how hard it is. It's like when I got to the one arm push ups, I was like, awesome, got here. What I mean, got those dialed in, and now it's just focusing on just making the form as tight as possible. Really working on just getting the groove as good as you can do, and same with like pistol squats and so on like that. But that one arm pull up, boy, it's just like one of those ones like, you get that little bit of progress here and there, and just it adds up. And I guess that's the key thing about it, is just keep working at it. But it amazes me how humbling that exercise is.
Yeah, I mean, body weight, people think it's easy, but no, you just look at the stuff that gymnasts do.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I can't do what they do, but it's you can see their physique and compare it to bodybuilders. It's pretty much the same, but the difference is they know how to use it, properly. People say, functional strength. That's what it comes down to. How fast you can run, how agile you are. That's where it matters in life.
Yeah.
Because having big muscles is fine, but if it makes you bulky and slow, then what good is it?
Yeah, it's not going to help you out if you need to climb or, run away or fight or even, anything like that. You want that speed, you want that ability, and so on. And that's why I just think, yeah, calisthenics just works so well. And like a lot of times when people say like, oh, like, well, push-ups and stuff are easy, and you watch them go, and it's almost like they're going at it with like no feeling in it and no like control. But like, you can even just take the old regular push-up, and if you just think real hard on it and you focus real, on the muscles and really slow it down and really grip it, you can make that exercise. It's like you could take almost any exercise and make it the most difficult thing known to mankind if you kind of almost tell yourself that that's how difficult this is. Like, even if it's a push-up or even just a regular squat, using the mind just to really like dial it in.
Yeah, and even with one leg squats, I'm experimenting on things now. I'm working on another book actually on bodyweight exercising, but uh, like you said, little things. I did a one leg squat on the tippy toes instead of having the flat foot
Hmm.
that they tell you, and even that makes a difference. The way you position your hands makes a difference. Usually you have your hands in front of you, right?
Hmm.
You have your arms straight out, but if you just place your hands on your hips, like you're Superman, and you do the one leg squat, it engages more muscle fibers because your leg has to work that much harder.
Because you don't got your counterbalance anymore of your hands.
Yeah, exactly. It makes it more harder. And you really have to engage your abs, and your legs work much, much harder.
Well, even too, if you're doing them on the tippy toes, it's almost like you're doing a one-leg sissy squat. It's almost in that kind of form. And that exercise always just has like probably the worst name possible. I don't know, like
sissy squat.
Yeah, whoever named that, like, that just makes you not want to do it when you hear that term. But like that is a good exercise in itself. And yeah, that's almost like what kind of reminds me of, is because it gets that little bit more quad activation in there by kind of up on your your tiptoes and going down into it and so on. The problem that I always had for the longest time for me when it came down to one-legged squats, and I think it's just because like my regular squat was always, I had my feet always turned out kind of wide, is that when I start getting to close squats and pistol squats and so on, is almost just being able to get it so my knee would kind of bend through my ankle a little bit, or over my ankle a bit. Like I would have that problem where I'd go into a close squat at first and I would just roll backwards.
Yeah. It's, you have to make sure that you brace yourself and that everything stays tight. You don't want to just hop like a bunny rabbit, because then you're gonna potentially set yourself up for injury.
But yeah, it took me a long time to work on just getting that close squat and then to the pistol squat going. And I think it was I just had that tip over factor. And I remember I read that, a handful of times too, that's just like, they're like, some people just based on like their bone size and so on also might have, if they got really long legs, they might also have that harder time kind of balancing it down there and so on. But yeah, that one's always still one. I'm still even working on it to this day, because I mean, that's how working out is. You go your entire life and you're always working on something. You never technically master anything. There's always something else to always learn, always somewhere else to kind of go and keep like exploring.
Right. You can't let it stop you.
But I know you say you got that other book coming out, and I know it was kind of mentioned there. You talked about that. Without giving away too much on it, like what's kind of like the stuff you're going to go on and talk about in that next one?
Well, I'm pretty much building off of what's in the bonus section from Muscle Mass Without a Gym. All these little extra tips to give you extra benefits, I kind of build off of there. I have found that in terms of muscle mass, in the book I said you do the 60-40 method, and that's fine. But I've actually found that if you make it even easier than that and working out smarter, it has given me more muscle gains. I mean, I see my tricep now and it looks like there's a horseshoe stuck in my arm. And what it basically is yes, you do your heavy work, your more challenging variations, but once you get that out of the way and you haven't overexhausted yourself, you still feel energized and fresh. You want to do a couple sets of 10 to 25 reps, ideally like 15 to 25 reps. And just by doing, 2 sets of that will give you much, much better results. At least that's what I've seen.
So keep it.
So let's say, for example, you can do, I don't know, a handstand push-up, 10 times. So you would just do 1 or 2 sets of 5, or even less. And then you would do at least 2 sets, 1 or 2 sets of 15 to 25 reps of an exercise that's much, much easier. Something you can do like, 30 or 50 times. And what that's doing is that gives you the muscle mass effect. Because, yeah, you did your strength work, but now you're going to get that volume in, which is going to make your muscles grow, essentially. Because if you just do strength, yeah, you get stronger, yeah, you build a little bit of muscle, but these extra sets will really make you grow.
Huh, that actually reminds me about exactly the way I'm pretty much working out at the moment. Because I kind of start my workouts off, and I just do kind of, like almost say like the grease the groove style of working pretty much on my one arm push ups, pistol squats or one arm pull ups, give or take on what it is. And then after that, I mostly always finish up with one or two kind of higher rep sets of an easier exercise, whether if you were doing chest, you could do dips afterwards with it, or push ups or close push ups or what have you. And that's kind of interesting because it's like that's kind of how I felt too. It's like you can work on your strength while you're kind of still fresh, and then you can kind of go right into, in a sense, your bodybuilding section next.
Yeah, so maybe you could write a book and beat me to it.
I had a book idea for a while, and it's just like anything in life, it's just there's always so many projects, and with my comic book and everything like that mostly takes up so much of my own time. But I want to call it like the hillbilly workout, because I'm like, there's always these guys working out in the street and working out in cities and so on like that. I'm like, I want to make a book where it's just all in like the outdoors, and it's just like on mountainsides and so on like that, and just give it a little bit of comedy and stuff in there too, just to kind of have fun with it. But just that, because I always think of like the Cavadlo brothers, they're always just hanging out in New York and things like that. And it's like, well, I look at those books, I go, well, that looks like fun, but I don't got any of that stuff next to me that I can use. I can't go swing off like a street sign or, scaffolding or something like that. But, well, there's tree branches and there's, logs and all kinds of other stuff you can kind of play off of.
I don't know how they do that without getting arrested. I mean, I know if I did that, I'd probably attract too much attention. Especially, it's probably because of my look. I got the whole, dark man with a beard and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of true. I mean, those guys have a bunch of tattoos, so I mean, they kind of look a little bit heathenish going out there, like, hey, what are those guys doing? But yeah, just sets you up for trouble. That's how I feel too. If, like, I know for a fact I'd be the first guy to go out there, do like one set of pull-ups off a scaffolding, and next thing you know, you've been thrown into lockup.
Yeah.
I was just trying to get a workout in, officer. Yeah, that's what they always say.
Yeah, too much masculinity.
You need to calm that down, son. Oh, okay.
Yeah, there are women and children here.
Yeah, what are you doing? You cut your shirt off and everything like an animal? Like, who do you think you are? You're
attracting too many women. Making it more harder for me.
Oh, that'd be hilarious. But yeah, I always just think about that, because all the books I see lots of times, it's just, hey, there's these guys hanging out in the city and so on like that. Or, you always see people, they're like, oh, I'm working out at the park and stuff like that. I'm like, that would be a luxury. Like, where I'm at, they tore up all those parks, like, in the late 90s, like, when they were, got to the point where, like...
What?
Yeah, because there was all these, like, workout parks. Well, granted, I will say they were kind of in the old style. Remember when workout parks used to be made out of wood?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so they're in that style. And once they tore that out, they just decided never to replace them with anything else. So, I mean, there's kind of kiddie stuff there, but they didn't put back in, like, monkey bars or pull-up bars or anything like that. So I always see these guys working out parks. I'm like, well, I don't have any of that either, too. I have to, like, drive out to the city to go find one of those, because they never replaced them.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. Not in Atlantic City, but where I was before, they had those parks, old looking, and they had bars that, you can do pull-ups and things like that. And you don't really see that anymore. It's strange.
Well, I think to me, this is what I always assume. I think for the city, it's just a liability. You're just waiting for somebody to break their neck and come sue. And I think they just go, it's just best, let's just not have it. It's just better not to have it. Though they got skateboard parks, so go figure.
Yeah.
What's worse, somebody coming by to try to do some pull-ups, or a guy going, down the skateboard ramp for the first time?
Hey, Mom, look, Tony Hawk's 900.
Yeah, or you get the guy who showed up there, who's about like 15 beers in too many and decides he's going to go jump on the kid's skateboard and go down and show him like how he used to do it. Yeah. So there's all that kind of stuff. I always thought like you could almost even make a gym. These are like one of my many kind of back burner ideas, but if you made a gym that was sort of like a mixture, like it was sort of an indoor/outdoor, it had enough of a roof that, you could kind of seal it up if it was raining or snowing or anything like that. But it was still kind of expanded to the outside for all the nice days. But instead, you focused all on like calisthenic stuff. Now, I feel like that's kind of still a hard sell. But if you really just had, a bunch of pull-up bars, you had your, your Olympic rings, you had monkey bars, you had just all the variations, you had some of the kind of the gizmo stuff like, suspension trainers and so on, just to make it look a little bit fuller. but almost just being able to have a calisthenics gym that people could kind of go to and learn. And you'd have to make it kind of community oriented, or else I think people would come in there and go, "Where's all the weights?" Or where's the machines and all the bells and whistles? That's what I like to see. But
where's the step climber?
Yeah, where's that step climber that always breaks down? That's always the first thing I think about in gyms. I'm like, that's always what gets gyms, is having to repair those machines every single time they break. It's amazing how much a treadmill breaks, and people can't figure that out. But it's like they break all the time, and then you got to replace it and put a $600 motor in and everything.
I don't understand why people drive to the gym to run nowhere on a treadmill.
I've never figured that out, because there's nothing fun about that.
Yeah, I mean, like if you're near a beach or a park, or even if you are in New York,
yeah, you can still run down the street.
Exactly. I mean, what is the point driving there and spending all this money just to run on a treadmill or to go on a step climber? And
the most amazing thing is, I just remember working there, is watching how many people that was all they did at the gym. So they literally paid $60 to come in and run on a treadmill for a half an hour, or ride a bicycle in there and take off. And it's just, that to me is like, by that standard, I mean, if that's all you want to do, you might as well just buy that treadmill for your house, because clearly you're not using anything else here, and the price that you'd pay for a year would buy you one. But still, it's like, because this my kind of problem with the treadmill too, is when you step down on it, you're technically not pulling yourself. The machine lets your leg go backwards, and you pick it back up and go again, so you're really only getting like half an exercise. If you're going to go run, you might as well just go out on a trail, or out on the street, or out on the beach, where you'll get twice as much out of it. It'll be that much more of a better of an experience, and you'll have things to see along the way.
Yeah, I think you're cheating yourself by running on treadmills. What I used to do was, at my other place, I would drive to a park, and there would be a big soccer field.
Mm-hmm.
No one was there in the morning. So I would go there and I would just sprint down the entire field. And in the beginning, I would, again, feel like I'm going to pass over halfway. But by doing it over and over again, I could just gallop down that field like a gazelle and feel great. And I think that does more for you, because when you run barefoot, you're working more of your muscle than just running in the same place on a treadmill. And like you said, the machine is moving it for you. You're not really working as hard as you would barefoot on the ground.
Yeah, because it's just all the little tendons and stuff too, especially when you can go barefoot. Like I would love to go barefoot out here, but it's just so rocky and gravelly that it'd be like, yeah, I gotta have something. I get those real, like, from like Zero, I have those shoes that just have barely any kind of, they just got just enough kind of protection around your foot, so it's as close as you can get to being barefoot without being barefoot. But yeah, it's just like one of those ones, like, if you got used to it, I guess, you'd be like a Native American over time, you would develop your feet into it. But
yeah, build yourself some hillbilly feet.
Yeah, exactly. Go walk around and just go walking around, working out, just in, like, it's nothing but overalls and no shirt.
Exactly.
But there is something to be said just about being, like, especially even just working out, just your regular exercises, like if you can just do your squats barefoot and all that kind of stuff. Or a lot of times what some guys would even do in the gym, like when they're squatting and something like that, is they just wear just the most bare minimum of a sandal, just enough so that you're not that guy walking around in public with no shoes on. But just don't have those shoes, because that's another thing that I think people kind of forget about. When you're first getting into working out, I think it's all those small things you feel like you need to have. Oh, I need to have a good pair of shoes, like a good pair of Nikes or something like that. And you kind of realize
another $85.
Yeah, and you just kind of and see, those are all those things that add up, and you realize that, like, those things probably are almost more of a hindrance to you. Like, I always kind of believe, like, when I was trying to get those pistol squats going, I blamed it a lot on a lot of these shoes that I was wearing. And there was a period where I had, like, kind of heavy work boots and things like that. Those things are about almost the worst thing possible, because they just lock in. Your foot doesn't move whatsoever once you have your boots on. And, I guess the only upside is it's almost like you're wearing weighted, ankle boots the whole time, because you get that. But, I guess you can find the positive in anything. But beyond that, though, I always felt like that really probably jacked up my ankle and foot just by not being able to have it move properly throughout the day.
Yeah, I mean, anybody can just do a home test for themselves. You just do your workouts with shoes versus barefoot, and immediately you see the difference. When I was going to the gym, I actually used to take my shoes off to do clean and jerks, because I felt more of that workout coming in. But I wouldn't really recommend it these days because you see all these signs: wear shoes, wear
Yeah.
shoes.
Exactly, and you just don't want to be, because you know that somebody else is going to look at you and be like, "Oh, there's that guy not wearing shoes again." Like,
I didn't care. People saw me. I really didn't care. I mean, that's the other thing I say in the book is, who cares what people think?
oh yeah,
People see me at the beach. People see me at the park. I really don't care. I mean, if you have your confidence, so what?
yeah. Who cares? You're doing your thing. You're getting the results. That's as long as you're getting your own personal results and what you do, that works. And that's always the kind of the key thing in working out. That and just being able to have a good time and enjoy it. Because that's how I feel. It's like I just love working out. Like when some people kind of treat working out like as almost like it's a job or something like that, or it's something that like they dread doing, like, oh, it's like going to the in-laws or something like that. That's the wrong approach, and it's like that's more of that. That's a mental block that's kind of preventing them from doing it, because you can convince yourself to like anything. You can convince yourself to like the thing you hate the most if you really think hard on it and tell yourself over and over that this is the greatest thing ever. I always tell people that with like food and so I'm like, if you want to like to eat any food, you can. You know what I mean? If like when people tell you it's like, oh, I don't like broccoli or something like that, I'm like, you could convince yourself that it's the best thing in the entire world. When you just eat it, you just kind of go, yes, oh, this is so good. You can just taste all the delicacies of it. Oh, it's so fantastic. Tell yourself that over and over, and next thing you know, you'll think that. That's how you can kind of bring yourself in. Now, you don't have to do that if you don't really want to, but the thing is, the mind has that power that, you can do that. And it's the same with working out. You got to tell yourself it's the greatest thing in the entire world. And just get that love going.
Still there?
I'm here. There's a little bit of a pause, probably. Those old Skype pauses.
Yeah, I'm working on getting more adjusted to broccoli. I prefer kale, but yeah, you're right. Broccoli is very good for you.
I agree 100% with you. I like kale way more than broccoli as well too. But I was using that as my example. Or like people tell me they like the common one I always get from people is like, oh, I don't like onions. It's like, I don't like onions.
What?
It's like, dude, onions are like, that is like one of the most magical, like, healing properties you can possibly have is onions. Like you got
If you say that in Jersey, you'll get killed over here.
Oh yeah. In California, sometimes you can get away with saying silly stuff. Yeah, I don't know what it is about that, but sometimes that is. But it's like, you just eat onions. It's like I eat raw onions. Especially like one thing I just kind of learned is if I'm ever feeling a little bit under the weather, I'll just eat, and then right when I wake up, I'll have raw onion, and I'll get like the green stem ones because that seems a little bit easier just to chew down. Raw garlic
Right.
and raw ginger, and just like shave a piece of that off and just kind of chew it all down, and that almost just toughens you up just in itself, just by being able to eat all that. And the thing is about 24 hours later, maybe 48 at the maximum, like I'm feeling back and ready to go again.
Yeah, these are a lot of understudied foods. People are so quick to take drugs. They don't realize that just by eating foods, you could get the same benefits. Drugs aren't really necessary. I mean, they are when you have a serious condition, but like you said, garlic has allicin, which is really good for you.
Mm-hmm.
Onions is recognized in Chinese medicine and the Ayurvedic medicine in India.
Yeah.
These can really help you with your not just your muscle quest, but your overall health in general.
Yeah, and it's just like I remember telling that to my buddy, the other co-host of this show, Ryan Dunigan, and he was sick once. I'm like, dude, go out and buy those onions, garlic, and ginger, and just start macking down on that every once in a while. And he only got 2 out of the 3. I'm like, you only got 2 out of the 3. I see how it is. You're not going to go the full distance, are you?
Yeah, it reminds me of a story. I don't know if you know the talk radio host Michael Savage.
Uh-huh.
Have you heard of him?
I have.
Okay, yeah. He tells a story of one time he was in Thailand. He was doing some research, and I think it was Thailand, but he got really sick bad. I think it was a serious flu or something like that, where he was lying on the ground, and his wife came to help him, and he said, get me a pie of pizza. And what he did was he just loaded that sucker with all these garlic cloves, and lo and behold, he got much, much better.
Oh, yeah. It's just a simple thing to some of these just natural plants and so on. Because I always just feel myself like I would want to take like absolutely no drugs, really no supplements. The only thing I do ever take is I do have like a pre-workout that I kind of take. And I know that's like those ones like there is something to be said if you can get by without having to take that, all the better to you, but I have always gotten kind of used to it over just the years and so on. But for the most part, like no supplements, no nothing. If I need something, I just go and buy the real plant and you just get it that way.
Yeah, I talk about it in the book too, that there's this whole craze that people have. It's gotten so bad now that people literally associate protein shakes with building muscle. Like they think like you can't have one without the other. But I tell you that you really don't need it.
Mm-hmm.
I've experimented on myself that you don't really need it, because you see, when you take these weight gainers or all these, chemically laced protein shakes, it messes up with your hunger cycle, and then you don't eat as much as you should. With me, I found that when I just cut it out and just eat wholesome food, that gave me all the nutrition that I need. And then when I took protein shakes, it would interfere with my hunger, and then I wouldn't eat as much as I normally would. And I didn't really see any benefit by taking it. Now, I know there are some health benefits for whey protein, and there are good companies out there, and they have good supplements that, that comes from raw milk, it's organic, no hormones, etc. And that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
You want to make, for smoothies, or you just like the taste or what have you. That's all right. But the problem is when people become dependent on it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's like, I always think of like, you would notice it when like you'd see those kids. It's always mostly kids, and I know like I even did it myself when I was younger. Is like when you first kind of get into working out, you almost put more money into the supplements than you do actual food. So next thing you know, you got your BCAAs, you got your pre-workout, you got your carb drink, you got your protein drink, your testosterone pills, and you got all these like things, and they got like they're coming in with like a suitcase as they go to work out, Just like looks like they ran away from home, but instead all they're doing is they're just carrying around their supplements with them. But you're like, why don't you just go buy some real food just right off the bat instead of all these supplements? And if you want the supplements, maybe put them in later on as like an afterthought, but focus on the whole food first, the real stuff.
Yeah, I would say if you really want to take them, first have your dinner, have your main meal, and then just take it afterwards as like a dessert.
Yeah.
You can mix whey protein into a smoothie and throw some berries or whatever you want, and that's your extra nutrition. But solely depending on the shake that it's going to magically. I mean, let me put it this way: if these shakes really turn you into He-Man, I would be taking it.
Exactly.
And everybody would be taking it.
Exactly. That's totally the case. Like, because really, like, I'll make shakes, but I don't really make, like, I only use the protein powder just really more than anything else to add that just a little bit of flavor to them. Like, I'll get the rest of my nutrients. Like, I make a lot of shakes just out of eggs and everything like that. And I just, I use the protein powder just to kind of make it have that little bit of flavor in there. And then I also combine that sometimes, give or take, with milk or half and half or creamer, just depending on how I feel, just if I need to add that little bit extra flavor and or calories. But that's about it, though. I mean, really, if I really wanted to minus away that protein powder, I could just do it with like peanut butter and banana, and that would be my flavoring almost.
Yeah, you're lucky in Cali you can actually get real milk, raw organic milk. If you do that in Jersey, you get arrested.
Well, it's so weird because I remember I lived out in Nashville, Tennessee for a while, and that was like one of the first things that kind of blew me away is one, how hard it was to find a grocery store. They just weren't on every single corner like in California. And two, I remember going in and seeing a bell pepper that was $5 for one bell pepper. And I was like, oh my gosh, no wonder everybody here is like totally not in shape unless they're at the gym, It was so weird. It's just like you can't buy any vegetables or anything else out here. It's like, it's all super expensive.
Really? This is in Nashville?
Yeah, in Tennessee, it was like the vegetables were it was just hard to come by, and there was barely any vegetables to really choose from. I really only bought frozen vegetables when I was there, because it was just like, well, I guess this is my choice.
Yeah, you got to do the best that you can.
Yeah,
where you're at.
That was kind of a little bit of an eye-opener there from like, because, in California, they're practically throwing those vegetables out, You go into the grocery store and it's just like, here, have these. It's like, it's a nickel for all of them. Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, that's a good thing about where you live is people are really into like the healthy living. Like you have more options like organic, non-GMO, things like that.
Well,
But
and where I'm at too, there's a bunch, right next door to me. There's, you go down the hill. There's a bunch of ranches and so on like that too. So if you wanted to go get your organic beef and your organic chicken and eggs and all that kind of stuff, there's
right,
all
right.
kinds of ranches just right in the neighborhood to choose from, which is always kind of a bonus. And at least you get at least you have an idea of like what you're getting. You know what I mean? Because you can kind of see it right there and then and there too. Did I lose you there for a second?
I think that's Skype not working again.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know. I saw that too. I'm like, I wonder what's going on right there. I'll just write that moment down, and we'll know to edit that part, little space out of the way there. Beyond all this good working out stuff and so on, I was checking out your website, and I know you do all kinds of, you got graphic design on there, and you do all kinds of other creative projects and so on too for freelance and business and so on. How's that
Hmm.
kind of stuff going along?
Yeah, it's going along. I mean, it's 24-hour work, but I mean, you got to do what you got to do. Uh, I'd rather be doing that than just working at some, 9 to 5 corporate job. You know, I had that opportunity, but you got to do what makes you happy. I know people, I have friends, I have people that I'm not really friends, but I know them, and I have family, and yeah, they have all these high positions at big Fortune 500 companies, but I mean the toll it's taken on their health and personal life, and it's just not for me. So art's my thing. I love it. It makes me happy. So I just decided to, run with it and keep doing it.
Oh, and that's always the key thing is when you can get that going and running, because that's what I've just sort of done. Is I just do a little bit of I have my own comic book, Pizza Boys, that I work on, and beyond that, I do freelance video editing and audio engineering, and sometimes some voiceovers, and just any and every little thing I can kind of learn about the multimedia spectrum. I just kind of do, and just kind of I've done photography and I've done, animation throughout time and so on. It's just these little things that kind of stack together, but
Nice.
at least it's like that's something I always kind of dig. That's what I like, and if it can kind of go more and more towards doing my own things and, doing podcasts and making comic books, it's great. And I think that's the key thing at the end of the day is you want to do what you really enjoy doing, or else, next thing you know, what's the point of getting up every day, if it's just not going that great.
Yeah, and then especially with this day in the economy these days, going that freelance route is probably going to be a necessity because these big companies they're all outsourcing and reducing hours, and they're really stingy about hiring people. They want one engineer to do the work of 10, and I just don't really see it as a reputable or even a safe route these days because things are changing and you never know what's going to happen. But it's good to have that option that hey, I can just work independently and make some money, and I don't really have to play dice by going to work and depending on a company or whichever way the economy swings.
Yeah, you're not balancing the economy way, and as I always kind of feel, it's nice to have just those multiple skills that at the end of the day, like being an artist is always going to be sort of in need. And the thing too is everybody is a slightly different artist from the next, so you never feel like you're really stepping on the toes of anybody else, or there's never like, oh, I'm not going to be able to do this, or no, your own unique abilities will be able to carry on. And I think, especially the farther it goes forward, I think that individual kind of art projects, whether they be traditional art or multimedia art, but I think even like cool other projects like things like wood carving and blacksmithing and all these other things are going to start to actually have a big comeback. Especially what I always feel once the robots kind of take over, I think a lot of traditional art's going to come back and just neat things like people that create furniture that's unique and people that create tables and do car designs and all that stuff. I think it's going to really kind of take over as time goes on.
Yeah, and when you think about it, freelancing was pretty much what they did in the old days. if you were a blacksmith, like you said, or whatever trade you had, you would work for yourself. You would just put a picture on your door, letting people know that this is what you do. And, you were working independently and you were developing your trade. But now it's shift to this like industrialized way of living where your life pretty much revolves around the company. And if the company dies, then you die. And with the internet, it's enabled people like myself, like you, like many others, that they can utilize their skills and work independently without having to sell their soul and sell their dignity and self-respect to all these corporate mega giants. Because I've seen that, and it's really humiliating what people have to go through to appease their superiors. And for a straightforward guy like me, that's not something I can do.
Well, and then you just never know when they're just going to throw you to the curb just on a whim, just because they feel either you're not right or you're not what's going for us, or maybe you're not getting your productivity in the way that they want. And there's just too many like small things in there that can just break the ship just instantly and get you out of there. So I feel there is something to be said about being kind of in the freelance kind of camp. I mean, granted, you're always kind of in that wave of like, oh, here's some jobs, and then here, let's go looking again, and here's some jobs, and here, let's go looking again. But beyond that, I mean, especially if you kind of got like a lot of your own stuff kind of going on, it's like, well, if I got a little bit more free time, guess what that means? I'm gonna be working on my book a little bit more, working on my comics, and if maybe I got some freelance work going, cool, I'll let that build up for a bit, and then once that kind of like peters out, and then those jobs are finished, then I can go back to some of my other projects. So I feel like it almost kind of keeps me in balance as well too.
Yeah, the thing is, you have unlimited potential. Like the more work you put in, the more money making potential you can have. At a job, it doesn't matter how much work you put in, you're still going to make the same amount. And it reminds me of that episode on SpongeBob where the they had that new management take over the Krusty Krab, where they had that separate human resources department.
Oh
If you
yeah.
didn't follow exact protocol, they would beat you up. I know what happened to Squidward.
Yep. I always love that when they put those into like cartoons where it's like there's this things it's like an 8 year old kid's never gonna get that, but like when you watch it as an adult, you're like, oh my gosh, look at that. Or like there's like in Batman the animated series, there's an episode that's all about like tax fraud, and it's like that's just such an interesting one to like try to explain to like almost a kid. But the thing about kids though, is a lot of times like even if it goes over their head, that's not a bad thing though. It's like maybe that will come back in life when they figure out what tax fraud is. They're like, oh, it's like that episode of Batman.
Yeah, like not too long ago, I was just watching some clips of the old Justice League from the 90s
Mm-hmm.
or the early
The early
2000s,
2000s
whatever
one,
it was.
yeah.
Yeah, and now that I'm seeing it with an adult brain, I appreciate it even more, compared to as a kid, because I can understand what the dialogue really was all about. And these writers, they had some real talent, and it's amazing what they produced back then.
Oh yeah, well that's the thing too is I've realized how much I actually enjoy cartoons and animation and anime and stuff like that just so much more the older I get. Like how old are you out of curiosity?
Well, I range between 22 and 57, depending on which casino I'm at.
I feel like that on any given day. That's why even like we call the podcast Old Man Orange, and originally it was just kind of because it was our animation company. But I feel like it's sort of translated into like sometimes I just feel like an old man. Sometimes I get that Hank Hill feeling going, and that's just kind of how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, there's this other like trend going on that, oh, if you watch cartoons or you watch anime or whatever, that you're a wuss or you're like a, I don't know, a sissified man or something. But no, I mean, it depends how you take it. Like you said, if you get inspired to exercise and get fit because you saw Batman or Superman, whatever, I don't see that's why it's so bad. I mean, if you indulge in it too much, okay, but I think, at least from what I see, these cartoons have much more creativity than the movies you see these days.
Oh yeah, and same with like even like live action TV shows. It's like the cartoons. It's like there's always something special that's always put into that cartoon that I think just always got shoved under the rug as far as like regular folks were concerned. And it's just like, oh, it's just a cartoon, no need to worry. But really, especially since about the 90s, like cartoons have been just really dialed in and just have just layers upon layers of material and education. And yeah, there's always going to be some dumb cartoons out there. That's granted to be. But the thing is so many of them are just so well put together. And, you think of like shows like Justice League and so on like that. Like, that's like the best representation you can get of like those DC characters. Or, you get the X-Men cartoon shows or, the Avengers ones and Spider-Man. Like, they do it so well in that. And that's how I just feel. It's like, I just personally have always liked cartoons. I like animation. Like, at the end of the day, sometimes I'm like that, I would rather almost watch that because I get more of a positive feeling out of enjoying kind of cartoons or in comic books and that kind of storytelling sometimes. And even the take-home message can be even better than you do, you're going to get sometimes with the news and things like that, A lot of times, like, when you see people that, like, they'll watch the news religiously every single day, and it's like, I almost feel like I want to tell them, like, are you going to go out and do something about that? No, it's just like, well, then don't watch it then. If you're not going to go out and do something about it, like, why subjugate yourself to that? Because it's just only going to make you angry, and it's only going to make you unhappy. It's like, it's not doing any good for you.
Yeah, I tried telling my folks that, but
I did the same thing, and that just doesn't really work out so well. It's just like, well, you're not going out there. You're not going to, like, run for any Congress or anything like that. Just let it kind of go by the wayside and just enjoy things, Let's just keep things simple sometimes.
Yeah, and one example comes to mind is you look at the cartoon version of Lex Luthor in the Justice League, and you compare that to the guy who played Lex Luthor in the live-action movie that just came out recently.
Jesse Eisenberg.
Yeah. I mean, personally, I hated the one in the movie because I was brought up with that cartoon.
Well, that cartoon one's so good, too.
Yeah, I mean, that Lex Luthor even though he's a cartoon, he's not real. He really gives you that vibe that, he's a freaking genius. He'll kill you if you don't mess with him. So, it really embodies the character of the super genius supervillain. But in the movies, I think they're just trying to mass produce and they're trying to imitate what they think works or copy something that worked for someone else. And it just doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
I don't know how you feel, but I prefer the cartoons over these live movies. I mean, the effects are great, but the cartoons do it for me.
Oh, I totally agree. I think the cartoons and, especially the DCU animated cartoon movies are pure fantastic. I still enjoy the live action movies. Like, I'm one of those ones, like, I look at them, I kind of just take them as is. Like, okay, it's going to be a little bit different. Like, let's just go with it and just enjoy it for whatever it is we get. But at the end of the day, though, I would love it if they just said, like, no, let's just do it exactly how it is, like, on the comic book page or how it is. Like, the animated shows do it like that. It almost feels like they look at the comic book and go, okay, this is what it is. Let's do it. And I would love it if the movies kind of stopped doing that thing where they go, well, let's put our own spin on it. No. It's not your story. Don't put your own spin on it. You know what I mean? Save that for when you're writing your own script. Just do it as it is on the page. It's already written for you. It's already storyboarded for you. You don't got to do anything else.
Yeah, that's the trouble that I see with these movies. They just haven't been able to do it. I would say the exception is maybe the Avengers. That's probably the best one that I've seen because they have great effects and the characters, the actors are pretty good. But with Justice League, Batman versus Superman.
Yeah, I'm one of those.
I like the one in the movie, like you said, the cartoon Justice League, where it was Superman versus Batman and Green Lantern.
Oh yeah.
I mean that was legit.
Oh yeah, totally. Well, it's just like these are the things like I still like because I like the DC just a little bit more than I like Marvel, but I really love DC. And even if their movies maybe aren't always as perfect, I still like them. I still enjoy them. But I do agree, it's like if they could just do what they do in the cartoons, they would have the most killer movie on their hands. And I feel like they could be almost unstoppable. And I don't know why. It's like one of those ones like if you just get those guys, grab those guys at DCU who are putting together these fantastic animated pieces, and just have them, be your writers and directors on these live action pictures. Like, but it's that weird kind of world where it's like, well, these guys are animators, or these guys are comic book writers. They're not prestigious directors and writers, and it's that weird like separate class.
They didn't go to Harvard like you did.
Yeah, they start getting that almost attitude that's they used to do it for TV as well too, and I think that's sort of broken a little bit more now. But it used to be like, oh, those are TV writers, they're not movie writers. And that kind of attitude, sometimes I feel it's like, no, if you're a writer, you're a writer. Do you write a story? Yeah. That doesn't make a difference what you write. You write a book, you write a screenplay, you write animation, you write for live action, you write for TV. You're writing a story. At the end of the day, what's the difference,
Yep.
But I don't know.
Yeah, with DC, I think they try to like overdo it in the movies. Like, if you look at Batman in the cartoon, like, from Justice League,
Mm-hmm.
It really looks like a person who has been, troubled in the past, and, he has that like dark vibe. But, Ben Affleck in the movie, he did all right, but sometimes it felt like he was overdoing the voice, the deep voice and the tough guy role. I don't know.
And everybody always falls for the Dark Knight Returns. Like, everybody wants to really make that comic. And granted, that Frank Miller book is always that is a total classic story. One of the top 5 most probably recommended Batman books I can think of. But sometimes it's like, they wrote other Batman books out there. Just saying, there's a whole stack of them that you could pick from. Because that was the same with the Christopher Nolan ones too. It's like, and don't get me wrong, I love those movies a lot too. But they kind of went towards the Dark Knight Returns section, and they used a little bit of other stuff. There's a little bit of Long Halloween in there, a little bit of Year One, and small stuff. But for the most part, though,
I lost you again.
Getting lost there. I was just saying, for the most part in Batman, though, everybody's going for that Dark Knight Returns.
Yeah.
It's just one of those ones. Like, I think sometimes I will say, granted, I do like all the DCU movies. I'm looking real forward to the Aquaman one coming out and everything like that. But there is kind of a point for some of them where I feel like maybe you guys should just shift. Just your producers, your writers, your directors, just let some brand new blood come in and kind of give it a new take. Just see what happens, I don't want to go a little too, because the only thing about the Marvel movies that I always kind of, is those movies can kind of go up and down between being like a serious movie to being almost like a wacky, goofy comedy. And I feel like if they could just find that balance between them, then they make awesome movies. But I'm almost afraid I just don't want to see DC go to like where they just try to up the wackiness even farther than Marvel, and then next thing you know, it's like, well, now we're watching almost like Mel Brooks presents like the DC universe.
Oh boy.
That's how I felt with like that last Thor movie. Is it just felt like, granted, it was still a fun movie, but boy, it was like they had a joke going every other line. It was just like, is this a serious movie or am I watching a Thor comedy? I'm not too sure.
Oh, no, I haven't seen it. The last one I saw was the Avengers with Ultron.
Mm-hmm. That's a great one. That's one of my favorite ones. I know some people don't think that is, but I think that's one of the best ones Marvel did.
Yeah, I mean, I like the part where he instantly put $1 billion in that guy's bank account. I think that's a little indication at how fictitious the economy is, the money system. Like, everything is so digitized and everything is done electronically. It's like, all right, here you make a bank transfer or whatever. They just enter numbers in the system and, well, that's that. But
because
can they really back it up?
Yeah, there's no standard. Like, once it kind of went off the gold standard, then it's like, well, what do you have this based on? It's just based on like an idea now. It's based on a principle that this is what this is worth, but it's not really, has no feasible. If everything kind of goes downhill, it has nothing to go like, oh, what will we go back with? We got nothing. It's almost kind of how I feel about some of the cryptocurrencies. It's amazing how like much like things like Bitcoin and stuff kind of go up in price, and it's like it's literally based all on an idea that this is worth something. That's all it is. There's no like physical like, oh, here's the Bitcoin and it's mine, 30 meters down below in Earth. It's like, no, it's just, this is it. It's an idea. It's a guy's idea that happened to expand to a ginormous like amount of money that who knows how long that'll last. Those are always weird things.
Yeah, you can't touch it. You can't hold it in your hands. So
yeah, if you go into outer space, you can't take it with you. I mean, it's kind of weird.
Yeah, that is that's a weird phenomena. I don't know what's going to happen with that, but some people say it's the future. Some people say it's a waste of money. So I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's all those little things like that, and just it's interesting to watch. That's all I feel. It's like it's fun just to watch and see what happens. If it makes you at least have a smile on your face just to see like, oh, somebody's doing something. Go figure. Let's see what happens. It could be worth it.
I mean, I know this kind of evolved in the third world because in those really poor countries they don't have money, so they invented this cryptocurrency system because that's the only thing they had. That's the only thing they could do.
Yeah.
So somehow from that it's made its way to America and other Western nations. So I don't know. I don't really see how people, especially elderly people, are going to make that shift to cryptocurrency when they have trouble turning on their TV these days.
Oh yeah, there is absolutely no way you're going to get them to switch over to that. I mean, it's already hard enough to tell them to do online banking, and that's been around since since the 80s pretty much. But still, it's like one of those ones that
they're the ones with the money.
Yeah, they're the ones with the money, and it's not going to switch over right at the moment. So until that point. I don't know. Those are just interesting things. I was looking at like how expensive those Bitcoin stocks were at the moment. It's just like, oh my gosh, that's so massively, massively huge.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's bigger than like all like the tech companies combined almost. Like just one stock. It's like based on nothing, based on an idea.
Yeah, I mean, then there's that conspiracy going around that the elites, they want that to happen so that they can control the money system and. I mean, if that does happen, that's bad news, but...
You mean talking about, like, when they want to do the thing that they can track every single purchase so that there's no such thing as, like, cash anymore, that, you can kind of, wheel and deal in, like, a back alley and sell something without paying taxes?
And technically, that's the case with Bitcoin because each transaction gets recorded.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not saying Bitcoin is the thing, but something similar to that could evolve where they do have oversight of every transaction that occurs, not just in America, but pretty much the entire planet.
Well,
and then that way, no one can escape.
Exactly.
Or it'd be very difficult.
Well, I think that's almost like it's like the slow goal of making everybody make sure they use their credit and debit cards. And it's like without really like, if because think about it, very few people just walk around carrying cash and just buying everything that style. That's a pretty rare one. I'd say like maybe 1 out of 10 people, if anything, do that.
Yeah, what's cash anymore?
Yeah, exactly. It's nice to have a couple extra bucks in your pocket, but I barely even use my cash too. It's more like almost like the emergency section. So by that standard, everybody's already kind of run their transactions that way, and unless you go to a pawn shop or something and you don't want to pay tax, and they don't want to pay tax, so you pay cash. But beyond that, like.
I don't know. It's funny you mentioned that. I think these like small underground shops and things like that, underground markets may come up because even if they make cryptocurrency the standard, I think people are still going to use some kind of physical currency underground because I don't think everyone is going to buy into electronic money that you can't control or touch or see with your own eyes. And I don't even think the president himself is a fan of it. If I'm not mistaken, he wants to bring back the gold standard in America.
Yeah.
So I don't know what he's doing with it, but I'm sure the Silicon Valley guys aren't really a huge fan of it. I'm sure they want to have that electronic money. And then you have other international entities who have their invested interest. That's a battle in itself. But I don't think everyone is going to just happily say, "Oh, cryptocurrency, sure, I'm in." A lot of people are going to have trouble figuring it out. I mean, listen, I'm not a computer expert, but hey, if you give me a broken CD, the geeks at Best Buy or whoever, they'll tell you it's gone, but I can fix it.
Mm-hmm.
I've done things like that. I know my way with the computer, but even for me, the whole Bitcoin area, the cryptocurrency, it's complicated for me. So if I'm having trouble, then you could imagine what it's going to be like for normal people.
Oh yeah, I feel like I'm in the same boat as you too. It's like I've used a computer my entire life pretty much, all the way from like the 80s all the way on up. So it's just to the point where I look at that Bitcoin and go, "Huh, that seems a little bit far-fetched, but I'll watch it and see what happens, you know?" So yeah, I think if guys like us are already kind of questioning it, I think there's just a certain person who just like goes balls deep into like, yeah, sure, let's do it. Let's be all crypto and just like I want to be different. It's almost that I want to like be not in the norm. I'm gonna try something that's it's almost like what's gonna make my parents really angry is I'm gonna invest in cryptocurrency. Son, no, you want to go on that gold standard now? Screw you, Dad. I'll do what I want. I feel it's almost like a rebellious sort of thing.
I got that Bitcoin. I'm a rebel.
I'm going against the man with my Bitcoins in my pocket. Well, they're not literally in my pocket, but I can imagine they are. They are in my mind.
Your electronic pocket.
Yeah, I got an electronic pocket. Come on. What do you got? Old-fashioned cloth one?
Weird. It's weird. You got to open a electronic wallet before you buy your Bitcoin because you need that. You get your electronic wallet, then you get this like code that is pretty much the identity for your wallet, and then you buy the Bitcoin, and then you transfer it in.
Yeah,
that's a simple explanation, but practically doing it, it's a lot harder than it sounds.
I know. Well, I was just talking to another buddy the other day, and he was like, I'm doing like just on the back burner, I'm doing some like Bitcoin mining, and it's just like that to me. Just all I picture in my head is like a guy in like, what's that video game called? Just totally drawing a blank.
What, Mario? Or
no, it's one of those new ones that the kids are all into. I mean, it's been out for like 10 years. Minecraft. There we go. I don't know how I just spaced out on it. It's just one of those. Just I guess that point in the day. But all I picture when someone's like mining for Bitcoins is like they're in Minecraft, just like digging away for like days. Like, we're like, where are you going? Like, well, you're not even in the real world, and you're like mining. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's people literally digging in a mine right now who are just really pissed at you and thinking you're working a hard life.
Yeah, I think people are just scared and they don't have trust in the current economy, the whole situation, how it's playing out. So they're just seeking for that safeguard. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
There is gold, but it's not affordable for most. And then silver is, it's not that much cheaper either. But Bitcoin, in the beginning, they saw it as, hey, this is a way to, take our independence for money. We can, we can still protect our wealth in case everything goes down under. But you see, just look at an example in India. I don't know if you heard, but there was a currency change where the Prime Minister Modi, he discontinued, I think it was $100 bill or some bill.
Mm-hmm.
He just stopped it because there was black money going on or something like that. Gangsters were profiting, something, whatever it was, he was trying to stop it. But in the end, it was the middle class, poor people who suffered because when they went to get the currency exchange, the lines were just forget about it. I mean, you're going to be there till the next moon, full moon.
Everybody's coming in and, it's like, yeah, everybody's got to exchange it and then they got to check it every single time, make sure it's not counterfeit. Oh, yeah, that was just...
It was chaos.
Yeah, that was just...
It was absolute chaos.
Asking for a fiasco. That's like one of those ideas that I can see where he had this idea on paper, like where it might have been like a halfway decent idea to stop piracy, but clearly that was like the wrong way to go about it.
No, and the gangsters, it didn't affect them in the end. They were still making their money.
Well, and that's always kind of how it is. People always think that's like, they'll do something like that. And like, this will stop piracy. It's like, no, you can't really stop piracy because they'll just think of a new way to do it. All you're doing is giving them a new challenge, and and they'll figure.
Yeah, a lot of these guys are very smart.
Yeah,
they're smarter than the government in most cases.
Yeah, because like that's mostly always how it is too. It takes a really intelligent person to like outsmart people and to swindle them and so on. So, yeah, and those are always weird ones too. It's like you see like the where you want to stop this, but is that gonna do it? It's like especially taking away a currency where someone has to go in and trade it in.
Yeah.
I mean, like in the U.S. they do it where like they'll change the bills to where they're a little bit more foolproof and they got more stuff built into them that track them and make it so that it's harder to counterfeit. But
Yeah, I mean, let's just say the worst case scenario. If everything indeed falls apart and you have another depression where, I don't know, it's $50 for a loaf of bread, etc., is cryptocurrency really going to help you? Is gold or paper money really going to be your ticket to wealth and success and protection from all this stuff? I'm not really so sure. I think as long as you have your house and your resources, that's probably going to be your best bet. Having a garden where you have your own food and resources, that's probably going to be a more wise investment than just putting all your money in Bitcoin or even gold. I mean, gold, I understand. Okay, you could, liquidate it. You can probably go to another country, etc. But if you can't afford it, you're better off, taking care of your house, having a garden, being able to grow your own food, maybe even generate your own power. And that's probably going to do you much, much more than just putting your money in cryptocurrency.
Well, because here's the thing. If we go Planet of the Apes and next thing you know, there's no computers left, where's all your money? It's in your digital wallet.
Yeah, there you go. And if it's at that state, do you think people are going to care about gold either?
Yeah, exactly. It's at the end of the day, that's where the guy that's hoarding like all kinds of stuff, like all this machinery parts and so on, where you're like, man, that guy's just got a collection of just old cars and old parts and everything like that. When we go Mad Max, that's the guy that everybody's going to turn to. It's like their new mechanic and the guy who's taking care of everything.
Yeah, that's the smart guy.
It's the guy who has all these parts. At the moment, it just looks like he's just got a bunch of junk sitting around the house. But believe me, that's all going to have a use the second that things turn around.
Yeah, it's going to come in handy.
Oh, that's always a funny one. But you just never know.
That's the thing with cartoons. I don't know if you've ever seen. I just started watching. I'm almost finished with it. Space Adventure Cobra.
I've heard of that one, but I never. Now, is that an anime? That one?
Yeah, it was from the '90s too, or either the late '80s to I think late '80s or something like that. But these Japanese guys, they really are predicting the future. I mean, the shows they created back then, I see it happening today, and I can see what's yet to come based by watching their shows, because you look at today, everything is becoming more automated. You have everything being outsourced to machines and robots, and these big corporations, they want that so they can save a buck. They don't have to pay human workers when the machine will do everything. So who knows? That might even happen.
Oh yeah.
But in the future, you have, or in these cartoons, in the future you have people who are just living with machines, and money is just sort of like an afterthought. Even if you look at Star Wars, it's all about the technology, and money is just sort of, it's there. They got gems, or they have the Federation credits, and it's not. I don't think it's going to have that big of an importance that it does today.
Yeah, I think as time goes on, money's going to have less and less of an importance. It's going to be kind of like almost that. I feel like you can almost even go in that Star Trek kind of philosophy, where we're more building yourself up and in knowledge and how you're going to almost like change the entire galaxy. Things like that will be more of like the drive of life. Will be like, what can I do? What can I invent? What can I make? What can I push forward? Instead of like, how much can I make?
Yeah, have you ever heard of the Venus Project?
Yeah, I have heard of it, but refresh my memory on what that exactly is.
Well, basically what it is creating cities that are living. They are cities that have a holistic design with nature, and the machines are pretty much replacing all manual labor. And the guy who invented it Jacques Fresco, he promotes a resource-based economy. So there is no money in his design.
Mm-hmm.
And, people just sort of laughed at it and just, yeah, whatever. But now you see these tech giants from Silicon Valley. They're building what they call the smart cities. That's what they're calling it.
Mm-hmm.
And I forget the name. There's one of them that's built in, I think, Mexico or New Mexico, somewhere in the middle of nowhere. And this city costs like, I don't know, 10, 20, 30 billion dollars. And it's all automated with machines.
Oh, I saw, because that's sort of like the prototype design, and it is in like New Mexico or Arizona. I remember seeing an article on that. I'm like, well, that's actually pretty cool and neat. And I'm kind of like, I know like sometimes people always want to make, you can out to be like the robots and everything will be dark, but I think it'll be actually a positive kind of thing. I think there's going to be dark parts to it all, and I think jobs will be lost like real fast. I think in 10, 15 years, we're going to see a massive drop in jobs just instantaneously. But I think in the positive side and like the optimistic view of it, I think there's going to be a bunch more of these other opportunities that just don't exist today that's going to come back around. And like, as I said, I think things that like handmade art and handmade designs, I think people are going to start gravitating back towards kind of having a cool dining room table and some neat chairs to go with it that, now they just buy stuff at Walmart and Target. But I think there's going to be kind of a change when the little things are going to start to matter once again.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see, especially with, the economy and robots replacing jobs and all that groove.
Have you ever had one of those robot restaurants yet? Do they have any of those ones out where you're at?
Oh, in Jersey, no. I think people faint if they see that here.
I ran across one because, I've always seen those ones in Japan and things like that. And I remember I ran across one of them over here in Berkeley once, and it was go inside and it was like 2001: A Space Odyssey. I kid you not. You're like in a square room and it was all white. And there was one worker there. There's a little girl. Well, little girl. She's like probably like 18 years old, maybe college or something like that. She was just there just to kind of guide. Just to guide probably the old folks that come in and have no idea what's going on, because I thought it was actually pretty self-explanatory.
What the hell is this place?
Yeah, when you walk in, it's like, oh, hell, But it was weird. It's like you walked in, and on the right side, there was like maybe 8 iPads, and you go over and you swipe your credit card on it, and it's like, hello, Spencer. And it's like, oh, okay, hey, what's going on? And then you go through like 9 pages to and you make these bowls that are kind of like a mixture of like, you have like vegetables and salad, and you can have rice and beans and tofu. And there's just all kinds of just random stuff that you can throw in there. I just picked all the things I like. So I had this weird mix match of like Mexican food and Asian food and sort of like salad and just all together. Cause it's just like,
making me hungry.
I just picked what I liked, and that was like what it made. And then on the other side of the wall, there was just about 16 or 24 screens. And on these screens, they were all like, they had your name, had a countdown of when your food's coming out. So it's a countdown from like
your social security number.
Yeah, practically. It wasn't that far. I like
your address.
The first thing I thought was like, man, if you're a hobo, you just wait outside, and when one of those things pops on, because people could order it from their phone. So when one of those things pops on, you wait to try to get in there before they do, and you grab it and run out. Because, yeah, and the things, it's made in the back, and, I remember seeing it once on, like, Discovery Channel or something a long time ago, one to Japan, and, there's, robots on the back, and they're putting it all together based upon, like, what you made and whatnot, and then when this bowl pops out, you get this massive bowl of all kinds of stuff that you wanted, and it's put together, like, better than any human could possibly put it. And not putting anybody down, but it was just like, it wasn't like it was just whipped in there. It was just like, oh, this is actually nicely tucked in and mixed together and everything like that. I got like a little iced tea and everything like that, and it was under $10. And I was like, how can you beat this? And it was just like, Jiffy on the spot. It tasted fantastic, like, I don't know, maybe in the back there, they were like harvesting humans or something like that, or they had like, crickets going on like in, Snowpiercer or something, but you never know.
Yeah, you'll probably see more of that sooner than us, because you're California, you're used to, or you're closer to Japan.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen those articles where they have fully automated restaurants, and I saw the picture of the Japanese owner. He was just sitting with his feet up and smiling, while the the robot worker did everything. It cooked the meals, it served people their food, and
Oh yeah.
he practically did nothing.
Exactly. Well, in Berkeley too, it's like that place is pretty much it's about like 95% Asian nowadays. I always say the only hippies that you see there anymore are all like the old ones that just never left and they're like begging for money on the street still. So it's kind of like completely changed as it's gone on. But I think it's those ones too. Like the one too, I almost feel like whenever it's like you see people in fast food, I always feel like at a Taco Bell, you always want to run in there and be like, "You guys better get out! You better get out before you know it! Like they're coming for you. You're not gonna last long. Like what's coming for us? The robots. You don't have very much time left. Get out! Get a new job quickly! What are you doing here? You can't. This is not a career."
There are no jobs left.
Because I feel like that's the first one. Those second those robots are dialed in, and I know they're testing them already, like in Chicago area and so on for like McDonald's and whatnot. But the second that those robots are ready, McDonald's, Taco Bell, Burger King, all those ones, they're gonna be like, "Yep, you guys get out of here. Let's put the robots in, and we'll have our one token worker here just to lend a friendly face, and that's it."
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your service, but the company no longer needs you.
Yeah.
Good luck, sucker.
Here, you could have one complimentary milkshake on your way out. Now get out. Oh, can I have some whipped cream with that? Nope, not. Get out. You're out of here.
And your pension is now being converted to maintenance fees for the robots.
Yeah, exactly. That's really the job to get into. If you really want like an old school like mechanic job, you want to learn how to work on robots. I feel that is the key job to have in the future.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, it's like, and I think the thing too, it's like I always feel like there's some of these people. It's like you guys got to really prepare for this because it sounds like futuristic and almost kind of like a joke, but it is clearly coming like way sooner than anybody thinks. As I say, I give it 10 to 15 years that like a lot of these jobs are going to start falling off the face of the earth.
Yeah, and if I don't know if you heard of Ray Kurzweil. He's one of the Silicon Valley guys over there. He's predicting that by 2030 that you're going to have massive change. They call it transhumanism, and he's predicting that that's the plan. 2030, you're going to see all this takeover manifest itself right before your eyes. And people just laugh this off. Yeah, it'll never happen. But they got the money. They're pretty much in control of the economy. So if they're investing all this money, all these billions of dollars, you look at Amazon. Mm-hmm. They just opened that store where there's nothing. You just go in, you pick what you want, everyth's automated.
Yeah, you walk out, it charges you on the way out and everything like that. Or
in and out in 30 seconds.
Or those, you look at the Amazon warehouses and they're like half robot right now, and
Oh yeah, I've seen those robots. They can stock things by themselves. They can open doors.
Yeah, and they also too. It's like an item comes in, and it's like, oh, I'm getting the new Superman movie. The thing goes, 15 aisles down, 7 to the left, and picks it up and comes back. It's like there's no way a human would ever be able to calculate knowing exactly where that always was. Be like, I think those are down on that aisle down there in the DVD section. But I can't really remember, So once they, those robots are dialed in already. They automatically recharge when need be. They never run into each other and so on. The second that you get robots that can pack things delicately, boom. This thing is like these things are just being invented daily that. And, I think the positive thing, once again, I've said, is I think that there's going to be a lot of these other jobs that you don't think too much of, but like certain things is like, yes, all the fast food restaurants, I think will be automated just instantaneously pretty soon, Starbucks, Subway, everything. But I think that like traditional sit-down restaurants might have more of a comeback though, when that happens, because some people will be like, you know what, I want a chef to kind of come in and have a restaurant where, the meals are almost like not always the same every single time you come in. They do unique things, and he cooks kind of like how he feels on a certain day, and he pairs items with certain drinks and, just stuff that's a little bit more in touch and kind of almost a little bit more, I guess you would say, human even, just like it's a unique kind of experience. I think stuff like that will come back.
You just want to deal with a human, yeah.
Yeah, and because I'm very optimistic about it. I look at it like it's easy to go like, oh, it's going to go Mad Max, and that's it. I just know it. But...
Help me.
It's gonna be like Battle Angel Alita, and we're gonna be like living in like the ghettos and fighting for robot parts and battling in the street. It's gonna be terrible. And above us, something special is gonna happen, but we don't really know exactly what it is because we're down here on the bottom. But I think all in all, it is a positive thing in the long run. I think there's gonna be that moment where there's gonna be a bunch of people standing around with no jobs and they weren't prepared for this whatsoever. you know. And I know that they're trying to think of what they're going to do when that moment happens. And I know that, like, have you ever heard the universal income thing?
Oh yeah, I heard that.
And that's a theory that, like, I feel like, well, that's one of those ones where 1/4 of the people will be able to utilize that and just, create all kinds of cool stuff, because now they'll be like, oh my gosh, I got all the free time in the world to do what I've always wanted to. Now I'm going to do this. But I think about the other 3/4 of people aren't going to do anything. And that's my kind of fear, is that it's going to promote, like, being real lazy real quick. Maybe, I don't know, maybe it'll be a little bit different. Maybe more people will, after a while, go, you know what, maybe I do want to, work on this project or work on that. But I don't know. That's a weird one.
Yeah, it may even help expedite what people already want. Like, for example, the book industry. When this whole like ebook craze, came out, the top guys, the top execs, they were predicting that it would replace physical books, but what happened was actually the opposite. Now people are having more access to physical books, as and you have a equal balance of physical versus ebooks. It wasn't just wiped out like people were predicting.
Yeah.
So, like you said, it doesn't mean that just because the robots are coming, it doesn't mean it's, the Terminator scenario. No, it's just that, things will be a little bit different, but perhaps people will just shift over to doing the technical aspect of, fixing things or creating things, or maybe the opportunity will present itself, like you said, for making shops, restaurants, furniture, what have you, that has that human aspect to it.
Well, it's like, so, you've probably met people like this before, because I know I always kind of run into it, especially when you kind of see somebody like you maybe haven't seen in a long time, or, or some, like, an old school chum or something like that. And they kind of got that thing where they're like, oh, yeah, working this blue collar job, it's a lot of work and so on. It's not the worst thing ever. But then after, like, that initial conversation they get into, like, what I really want to do is I make these really cool wood carvings and so on like that, And yeah, I do it just maybe on the Sundays or just like when I got a little bit of extra time. But man, if I could just do that the whole time, that would be amazing and so on like that. And that's where I kind of go, aha, this is the moment where if you got people that have all these kind of cool little extra creative ideas that now they don't have the time for to necessarily get it going, the second that they're maybe freed up, or even like, their hours are now limited, as far as like, manual labor and work goes, next thing you know, they're like, oh, well, I can jump in and I can do all this really cool creative projects I never had the time for. And I'm going to go make stuff. I'm going to do chainsaw carvings and all kinds of, weird furniture. And I think that, like,
I've seen a girl do that, yeah. By the way.
Well, there's one of my buddies from school, and he was talking about just doing these, like, he would like pull certain sections of the tree out and like, he was making cool carvings out of them. And I just told him, like, I'm always like, whenever people tell me that stuff, I'm like, do it. Go for it. Why not? Because I know that other people are going to tell him, like, do you think that's actually going to sell? Or do you think people actually want it? I want to make sure that I'm giving the most positive explanation to this person. I want somebody to hear that, like, no, you should do it. If this is your dream and this is your project, you go the distance, And I think that really these robots will actually end up making these things a lot more of a possibility.
Yeah, I mean, that's the trend with technology. It just helps you, it makes things easier. It helps you create more. Like, I have a laptop, I have a computer, I have Photoshop. It's allowing me to do things that I otherwise couldn't. And when you have like websites like Amazon, and then you got PayPal, the internet, etc., this has enabled people like me and many others to work independently. Mm-hmm. So I don't think it's just going to be, people having their bodies and minds harvested like in the Matrix and that sort of thing. I mean, I guess that could happen if you have a real lunatic running the world, but I don't think it's going to fare well with people, because even if you have the technology, even if you have that money, you have 7.5 or whatever it is billion people that you have to control, and
yeah,
that's quite a feat to do.
Yeah, and it's it's ever growing. So by the time that comes, yeah, I think that's a little bit far fetched. It makes for fun stories, don't get me wrong, but yeah, I think that's like a little bit too radical. it's fun to think about that kind of stuff. But for the most part, I think, I think it's going to get to kind of almost like that 1950s, like when they're like, oh, the world of tomorrow, in the future, a man will only have to work 4 hours a day and he'll have enough time to enjoy the family and have all the events he wants to do. I think that's where it's going to get kind of to, where people do, they got their, whatever their kind of job, or like even like hobby jobs. I think hobbies will really also be the other thing that takes off. As we said, whatever, it's an art project. But I think people that's like, like writing books, because, you meet people like that all the time that got ideas for books and they never get around to doing them and so on. Well, maybe now they will, And just like any kind of media thing, I feel like even though people always think that sometimes certain things, it's like, like YouTube and so on can get oversaturated. I feel, in a sense, but at the same time, it just gets more dialed in for each person's experience, Because you pick the videos you like, you pick the books you like, It's like podcasting's a perfect example of that. That, before you had like talk radio and like wherever you were at on your radio station, you probably had maybe 5 choices if you're lucky, give or take, if that even.
With static.
Yeah, with static too, especially if you get too far away or you get a mountain in the way, and maybe you get San Francisco over here, but then you drive down the road and next thing you know, now you're getting Monterey. It kind of happens. But with podcasting though, I mean, you get the most dialed in experience you can want. So it's like, you can almost get to a point where it's like, well, I like history, but I like history with a little bit of comedy. And then you start listening to one podcast, well, maybe not that much comedy. Maybe I like it with this type of comedy instead. And maybe I want European history and not, it's like you get so many choices that I think that's just a benefit. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, granted, I feel like the ultra large, almost kind of like, how bands used to be, how, you get bands like Kiss or Motley Crue or Aerosmith and the Rolling Stones. They're just ginormously big. I feel the downfall is I don't think anything's going to be ever like that big again, where it's just like the biggest thing you can possibly imagine, or like the Beatles or something like that. But now it's like almost like you take like Spotify, and that gives a much more diverse, realm where you can just dive in and keep going farther and farther to like genres that you would have never found before, and go, well, I like this kind of rock and roll, but this one's got a pirate theme to it. Oh, but this is a pirate theme, and these guys come out of Norway. You know what I mean? Oh, and this one's a pirate themed metal band, but it's coming out of like Japan or something like that. You just start getting these weird places, but you just get it as dialed in as you could possibly want for your own personal experience.
Yeah, you'll be exposed to a lot more ideas that you otherwise wouldn't. Like if I didn't have YouTube, I would have never found, cartoon shows that I liked, or other, people who discuss different ideas, different philosophies. And that I would have never come across that if it weren't for the internet. I would be dependent on the library, But you make a lot of interesting points. If you remember the Looney Tunes cartoons,
yep,
the dancing frog or singing frog,
yeah,
the guy finds the frog and he thinks he can make millions of dollars if people will watch it and pay for it. But it ends up not working, and then in the end they had this scenario where it was like the year 2000, like 2 or something. And since these cartoons were made in the 50s, the way they depicted it was people running around in like space-looking outfits. They're doing their construction work with lasers and all this really crazy stuff that's so futuristic, even by our standards today. But the reality is we're way past 2001, 2002, and we are nowhere near that. We're seeing the beginnings of that, but it hasn't happened the way they were predicting it. They were depicting in their shows. So, the future is flexible. It's not always written in stone.
Yeah, and I think too, it's like, in the 50s, I felt like that was kind of that breakthrough point where they're like, oh boy, things are going to change ultra quick. And I mean, granted, they do, but just in ways you didn't think nearly as much. I mean, one of the best examples of probably really just watching technology change quicker than anything else is when you look at video games. Because really, as a whole, video games are not that old. If the first video game came out in 1968, you know what I mean? And all it was just like a simple space war game, in a, a military kind of computer. And from that point on, you go into Pong next being kind of like a big one to sell out to the mainstream. And it builds into Atari and it goes into Nintendo. And then you're into 16-bit graphics in the 90s. And, arcade machines, and then next thing you know, it's 3D, and now we're in the 3D with real worlds, and now we're in the virtual reality. It's amazing because it's really not that old. I just look at it just in my lifespan. I started off, first thing I ever played was an Atari, and from that point on, now I'm looking at like, oh, we got virtual reality now we can have, and really not that long of a time period.
Yeah, speaking of that, I haven't touched a game in a long time, but the college that I was at, they were having free practice sessions for virtual reality,
Uh-huh.
and I went to it. I got to tell you, it really blew my mind. I was going there thinking it's going to be like, some like, pretty good graphics, nothing crazy. Yeah, I'm still going to be able to tell that it's fake and whatever. But no, when I put that headset on, in 40 minutes, I went to space, I went to the mountains, I built a snowman, I was fighting, robots and some different planet. It was really impressive, and I'm very, very impressed, and I can see that being like the next internet.
Yeah.
Like you talk about how the internet has revolutionized things and how robotics and automation has revolutionized the world. I think virtual reality is going to do the same thing.
Oh.
Because like how like we're interacting on the internet, with computers.
Mm-hmm.
But I think virtual reality is going to take it to a whole new level. That you can interact with people, with groups, in so many different ways that you can't with just the internet.
Well,
and I see so much potential and so much possibilities with the way we educate kids. Like for teaching history, you can actually send people back to the past. You can show them the dinosaurs. You can show. And if you're learning chemistry, you don't have to worry about blowing stuff in the lab because it's a virtual reality.
mm-hmm.
You have limited resources. You're never going to run out. And it makes it accessible for everyone. You could be an Eskimo in Alaska, and you can learn how to play tennis.
Yeah.
You can go to the beach.
Yeah, you could be sitting at Harvard as an Eskimo, and and like have the exact same experience that somebody else might have.
Exactly. It's going to make more opportunities available for everyone. And that's something I want to get into because the graphics were really, really good. And the whole, the sound, the whole experience, it really puts you in there.
Mm-hmm.
I would say the next big leap for them to do is to incorporate the, touch sensation, the physical aspect. They call it haptic technology.
Yeah, where you have the suits on and everything like that, and you can kind of feel it. And
yeah.
what?
But I think they can do it because you see, NASA sends their rovers to, Mars and whatever, and they can detect the elements, the minerals in the soil. Well, how are they doing that? They have these little sensors that's brushing upon the rocks, and all that information is fed to the computer so they can figure it out. So if they can put that technology and incorporate it into virtual reality, I'm sure they can do it. It's just like how you have software programs where people make models where you can download, like they're sharing models, they're sharing objects, they're sharing environments, and you can download and play with it and make whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
I'm certain that you're going to have like a virtual reality type internet where people are scanning all these objects and they're making all this content that you can just download into the virtual reality internet, if you will. And you can have whatever experience you want.
Oh, yeah. Well, I just think like perfect examples like, okay, we're doing a Skype call right now and talking to each other across the United States. But think about like if we had virtual reality Skype, we could literally be like sitting down and being like, oh, well, we could be sitting down at a jazz club and just sitting in the back booth having a conversation. Or we could be sitting down at a theme park if for some reason we wanted to. Or maybe we're sitting out on like the Great Wall of China, just, looking over the side while having a conversation. Like, sometimes it's even like the smaller things I think about that almost like can even blow my mind more than like, it's like, oh yeah, like being able to go and journey into different planets and so on. Like, well, that'd be cool. Or, having like high tech video games. But I'm like, even just the small aspect of being able to have like, as weird as it sounds, like a virtual like conversation just like at a coffee shop with somebody that you don't live next to anyways, but you can almost get that face-to-face value. Because that's even in podcasting, like, I do a lot of podcasting over Skype, but I kid you not, if you can get any podcast and sit down in person and do it, there's just a little bit different feel to it, a little bit different, like it's just something a little bit more natural. But maybe in virtual reality, you can capture that naturalness. I mean, I know it's still kind of like, it is a little bit still fake and it still is a little bit uncanny, but it might just be enough that like you almost might forget that it is. And you might be, oh, I feel actually like we're together hanging out, though we're not next to each other whatsoever.
Yeah, like just look at The Matrix. Once you get it to that level where you can't even tell the difference, then, I mean, it's pretty much the same thing. People can visit their friends, they can visit their families, they can possibly even commute to work that way. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like, I think even with the commuting to work thing, I think this is where the robot cars come in super handy, and this is where I've always been very positive towards it, because I just think, I'm like, if for anybody who has that long commute, or even tying our podcast back around, let's say if you're going to the gym and you have to drive a half an hour there and a half an hour back, if you're in a robot car and let's say it's 100% fully automated, it makes better decisions than any human. Well, next thing you're in your car. Now you can get a bunch more done. One, you could just read, simple like that. You could watch a movie. You could play a video game. You could take a nap. You could, do
push-ups.
Yeah, you could do push-ups in your car. You know what I mean? Or maybe get little pull-up bars like on the ceiling. You can do things like, if you had a long commute, like I just think about people, there's, people over that commute 3 hours to like, the Silicon Valley area and Bay Area and San Francisco and even LA. If you had a long commute, well, you could take a nap in your car on the way there and on the way back, and you almost wouldn't have to sleep when you're at home too much, because you got mostly all of it done, like on your way to work, instead of having to sit there and drive the whole time. You could get work done while you're in your car too. So maybe you drive to work and you get like half your work done while you're just in the car on the way there and on the way back. So many things, and to me, it's like, my whole life is like, how can I get more productive, save more time, and all this, whatever I can do, and anything that I can get that's slightly more automated, slightly take away those little tasks, those little things, like driving, because that's kind of how I feel driving is. It's one of those ones, it's not a bad thing, but it's a time-consuming aspect, when you add it up, like, I don't care really who you are, unless you happen to live next to everything you are in a 5-minute distance. When you add things up, when it takes to driving, it's like, that's a lot of your week is just driving, and granted, it's best if you can fill up with at least a podcast or something like that, at least to make it sort of worth your while. But at the same time, if you could shave even more of that time off or get even more done, that's all the better.
Yeah, you should go for a drive in Atlantic City. A really kid, he'll throw you for a loop.
How's that go in the traffic zone there?
Oh, well, you see all the trash and filth of the city every time you go for a commute. You see all the bums, you see all the hood rats, the hookers, the gamblers, all that fun stuff.
Sounds kind of like Las Vegas.
Well, there you go.
But
that's pretty much all they have going down here is casinos.
Yeah, as I say, I know that's like, it's kind of big deal. It's the other kind of casino town on the other side of the U.S. But yeah, that sounds like an interesting adventure, if anything.
Oh yeah, but what you said about the whole commute thing. Have you ever seen the movie Tomorrowland?
I never got around to seeing that. That's the George Clooney one, and I heard good things about it.
Yeah, it's a funny story. My Bulgarian friend, he wanted to see the Avengers with the Ultron.
Uh-huh.
And I actually convinced him to see that movie instead. But, he thought it was going to be all goofy because it was Disney or whatever. But actually, it makes you think, because what you just described previously with the whole automated cars and how you can get work done during the ride, etc., that's what it was depicting in that movie. You have these big automated, it's almost like it's like these small like trains that transport you wherever you need to go, and you can walk around, you can, like you said, you can do other things, and or you could just watch the scenery, whatever. You're not bounded by, I got to pay attention, I'm driving, I don't want to hit someone, blah blah blah. that's what it was showing. And all these machines and robots, they can take you wherever you want to go. You can take mini trips to space. That's what it was all about. And yeah, I can see that happening, and it would benefit people a lot.
Yeah, it's just those things like how can you get more work done in the day to save more hours? So also you can also have more time for, relaxing and not having to be, filled up with 14-hour days and being able to pull that back a little bit, and just calm it down. I just look at there's just so many benefits, you know what I mean? I mean, like, yeah, it's like, okay, semi truck drivers are going to lose their jobs and so on. So I feel like, well, now's the time to start converting into like, well, what's the job you're going to need to get? Are you going to become a mechanic for robots? Are you going to be, I mean, for a while there, they'll probably have the thing where there's like still a guy riding with them, but it's going to phase itself out. It's like, you always got to kind of think of the future. It's same thing with like people in warehouses and so on too. That's always one of those ones where, you don't know how long that job's going to last, Start transferring over as quick as possible.
It's probably for the better though, because I've done that thing, working in I used to work in a Chrysler plant,
Mm-hmm.
and I can tell you, I'll give you $1,000 if you can find anyone who loves working there.
Yeah.
People don't really want to do these jobs, so if the machines replace them, then I think they'll be better off without it. There'll be other things that come up. People were scared when the internet came out, when the computer came out, that, oh no, it's going to take over and automate things. But no, you still have accountants, you still have, bookkeepers or things like that. But it just makes things easier. It makes your productivity better, if you will.
Yeah, and you could say with the internet, we only got more jobs technically by having the internet available, and having just like, there is all kinds of ways you can just get income straight offline. All you gotta do is, know your research and just set yourself up. But yeah, I think jobs like, factory jobs where you got like a Bruce Springsteen song playing in the back of your head. Yeah, I think those were made for robots 100 years ago. We just haven't got to it yet.
Yeah, we haven't caught up.
Yeah, those are those ones where like, that's like people coming out of coal mines, and children and so on like that. It's like, there are some jobs that just were never meant for man to do, and somehow, some way we subjected people to it just because of money and power and an opportunity that was there and somebody willing to do it.
Yeah, you won't see any bus drivers anymore.
Yeah, but buses will be pretty automated pretty fast. Because think about it, like for most buses, I look at like San Francisco or something like that. It's like, where's the bus going? It's going in like 3 different straight lines for the most part, and it pulls over at like every curb. So it can figure that out pretty quickly.
There's 3 things I'm good at in life, Spencer: beer, bus driving, and beating my wife.
Yeah, you're gonna take those away from me, goddammit!
America. Yeehaw.
It took her jobs. It took her jobs.
Yeah. Yeah. I've seen too many bus drivers intoxicated on the job, so it'll probably be a good thing.
Well, I mean, you think about, once again, you're driving a bus. What are you doing? You're going 3 different places in a straight line. You do the same thing day in, day out. Those are robot jobs.
I'd be drinking too.
Yeah, it's setting you up for that type of lifestyle. I think man's just not meant to do the exact same thing over and over and over again. I know people want people to do that, but it's just not made that way. It's just not natural. But a robot could probably do it until the robot starts to get its own like ways and doesn't want to do that anymore and decides that this isn't the way of the future.
Hey, wait a minute. Why am I working for these schmucks? Yeah. I could take over the world.
Yeah, let's get our robot union together and get this going.
Hopefully by then I can leave the earth.
Yeah, I don't think we'll have to worry about it. By the time the robot unions come, I think we'll be a little bit past. I don't know. Who knows? We could be living by 200 years old by that point. Some people think that, like, due to kind of like the way that lifestyle is sort of changing and so on like that, like the life expectancy is going to just dramatically start to grow.
Yeah, that's another thing that's going on, aging. I studied, biology, biotechnology in college, and yeah, that's a big growing industry right now. I don't know if you've heard, what's his name? David Sinclair at Harvard.
Uh-huh.
He claims that he came up with a supplement or a drug that he thinks, or he's claiming that it's going to increase longevity. And I don't know if it's going to revert the aging process, but he's saying, yeah, you're going to be living longer. And I think right now it's going the process of FDA approval, but hey, I mean, if it comes out and it all goes through, then that's just going to be the first of many to come.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's going to be more drugs or other technology, other devices that will do the same thing, revert you back to your prime age and just keep you that way.
Yeah, just be able to
So,
sort of like reverse, like, or at least slow down the aging process. You never know what might come out. He'll probably sell it in a protein powder and everything.
yeah, then I will advocate them.
But yeah, it's just like, I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of those kind of cool things to look forward to. I remember I joked one time with a guy on Twitter, and I was like, I've just accepted that there's just certain movies and games and books that I'll just never get to because I just will never have the time, and I'm almost okay with that. And the guy's like, I plan on getting to them. I plan on living to 200. I'm like, oh, you got that same goal too?
Yeah, you never know, man. You never know.
So yeah,
It's funny. In the 50s, there was a guy, what was his name? George von Tassel.
mhm.
He was claiming that he met an alien, and his name was Zagunda. And according to von Tassel, he didn't look a day over 28, but this guy, Salganda, told him that he was over 750 years old.
Huh.
Now, if that's true, whether you believe it or not, let's just say it is true. Then, okay, if other alien races have mastered their own biology, it's not that far-fetched to say that, hey, once we get to that level, we could probably do the same thing. And there are other animals that live really long. You have, giant tortoise that lives like 250 years.
Yeah.
Blue whales live really long too, 100, 150, etc. There's actually a jellyfish that's in the Pacific. It can actually reverse its life cycle and revert back to a juvenile stage. So if these animals have these abilities, I'm sure once they get the technology, biotechnology, genetics, etc., they might invent something that can give human beings a similar ability. So we'll see.
Oh yeah, you just never know. Like you always, it's always kind of weird to think about that too. Like I always there's a sea turtles out there that have been around since the 1800s and are still swimming to this day. That's just weird to think sometimes when you like pull it up like that.
Yeah, a lot of these plants, like the creosote bush, it's a type of cactus.
Mm-hmm.
It lives like 10,000 years. They have one in Texas. It's 10,000, 15,000 years old.
Yeah, just ridiculous.
It's been here when the Egyptian pyramids were being built.
I know, it's just weird to think. I mean, there's a tree. It's called the juniper tree, and it's up just up the hill from where I'm at, and you can go there and look at it and so on. And it's I want to say it's either 4,000. How much is it? 4,000 years old. This tree. It's just a big old massive thick tree that somehow, some way, no loggers cut down, I guess, when they came up towards it. So, but just small things like that are just kind of cool in itself. Now, have you ever heard this before though? Like the natives on down like the Caribbean areas and stuff like that. That a lot of those ones before the Europeans came by and so on like that, they had like weird, like, their own kind of records of so on, but it was not unheard of for these people to live to almost like 200 years old down in those areas. Until European disease came by and took care of that.
The goddamn white man.
Until all these guys came by and just brought all their filth with them, and next thing you know, it's just millions upon millions of people died that nobody seems to really like bring up too often. But
yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. If you look at the Sanskrit texts in India, they talk about kings that had 35,000 year rules.
mm-hmm.
Their rulingship was 35,000 years. That's what it says, and it talks about all these different stories where they're gods, like Shiva, etc. Mm-hmm. That according to them, that they're like millions of years old. They actually say that these beings come from a different world. So if you say that in academia, they'll just say, oh, you've lost your mind. But hey, if that's what it's saying, then that's what it's saying.
Yeah.
And very few people can read Sanskrit. Very few people can read the Bible in its original language, the ancient Hebrew. And what it says, in its originality is very different to what is being told today in schools. And these things are not uncommon. they have stories of people who are living very, very long lives, 500, 600. And then again, you have examples like kings or other beings that live over 1,000, 10,000, 50,000 years old. So maybe there is some truth to that. It's not, maybe it's not really science fiction.
Yeah, I feel like there's just certain ones where it's like maybe it's not too out of the reach, the norm. Or I'll even take like just like the up to about the 200 or so like that, because that's already sounds like to anybody nowadays that'd be super far fetched. But just the idea that maybe if you lived in the right climate and you had the right nutrition and you had the the right amount of sun and you weren't surrounded by chemicals and you weren't having any type of factories being made and you didn't have what I mean, just it all was just the right area. Maybe that is the case, that you could live just much longer, and maybe even not being in like such snowy and harsh climates too. Who knows? You never know.
Yeah, I'm really into natural medicine. And even when you look at that, we already know now today that there are things you can do, like you said, exercise, eating the right foods, herbal medicine, nutrition, vitamins, minerals, etc. We already know that these things can make you live longer and healthier, as opposed to someone who's just, beef and beer every day, or, whatever diet they have, McDonald's, etc. Yeah. We know that that will make you live longer. So if we already have science that proves that we can do things right now to extend our lifespan, then it's not really crazy to say that, okay, in a couple of decades from now, we're going to have more material that we can use. I was just seeing another article I found that they have this supplement out that's called Carbon 60, and they're saying that has been showing that the research is saying that can help you live longer. It can reduce the effects of aging, etc. When I was doing my research at the university, I was studying all these herbs like ashwagandha, like even common herbs like turmeric. People don't realize if you take turmeric with black pepper, that has massive amounts of anti-aging properties. And this is not expensive. You can get this, at the grocery.
And just about every grocery store has it too, unless maybe you're in the South. Then it might be a little bit tough to come across.
Yeah, but I mean, even with the internet, you can just
buy it.
So yeah, things like that, cinnamon, thyme, these have a lot of medicinal properties, and if you take them, you can reverse aspects of the aging process. People think that, oh no, I got to eat goji berries and this, etc. No, not necessarily. If you combine blueberries and cherries and cranberries, from the research that I found, that has a very, very powerful effect. It's like the triple trio of the berry world.
Yeah.
It gives you all these health benefits, and the research is there. I mean, I put it together. I had like 100 different citations. The research is already there, that these berries have the properties to reverse aspects of the aging process. And, you can easily make a smoothie with that and, throwing a banana or whatever. And then you can just sprinkle some herbal powders like ashwagandha, you have spirulina, you can put turmeric, etc. You're basically creating a shake, like you said, that's going to help you live longer and keep you fit and healthy, and will offset the degenerative effects of aging.
And the nice thing, is you put it together yourself, so you know 100% what's in it.
Exactly.
You're not getting the problem of sometimes like when you get stuff and you're looking at it and you go, well, is this exactly what's in it, or is this just what it's telling me?
Yeah, I can tell you it's going to be better than the McDonald's flurry shake that you get.
Yeah, on your way out of the job.
Flurry, whatever it's called.
The flurry on your way out as the robot comes in to take your job.
Yeah.
Your complimentary flurry.
Yeah, you got like 15,000 calories in that drink.
They tell you it's complimentary, but you still got to pay the tax on it.
Oh, yeah. Don't get me started on that.
Oh.
Yeah, these drinks these days, they are just loaded with
Oh
sugar.
my God, I know, and it's like I'm just those people
It's
like
crazy.
I could never really have that much sugar. It's just I've never been a sweets person. It's just like if it's too sugary and too sweet, it's just like it's always been too much for me. I mean like a little bit of fruit and berries here like that. I'm fine with that, but like beyond that, like I don't know how somebody just drinks one of those like massive like you know sugar filled, not even real sugar. You got corn syrup filled shakes, and it's just like.
Yeah, it is just loaded with it.
Of like not even well made ice cream. And it's just when you just get a bunch of stuff that's not put together well and you combine it all together, that's just asking for a recipe of disaster.
Yeah, and sugar, it increases the negative effects of aging. So
Yeah.
you want to stay away from that.
Well, I've always seen those kind of researches on, certain ancient cultures that, didn't have, they generally, just because of where they lived, they didn't have anything sugar wise. And even like fruit, I always kind of think it's like, if you go out in nature, you only get fruit for like 2 months out of the year, give or take on where you're at, because those berries appear, or even if they're apples or anything like that, they only appear for just so little, and then next thing you know, they're gone. So you really only are eating fruit maybe during just a couple months in the summer, and that's about it, give or take, unless the plant produces it other times.
Yeah, it's a tropical fruit.
Yeah.
So
So, and for most places, I just think about like where I'm at right now. I think the only natural thing that's outside. I don't even know if it's natural. It might have just been carried over by birds over the years. But these blackberry bushes are about the only things you can kind of find if you want just straight fruit. Like if you're just living pure off the land and you weren't growing any of your own stuff and you're just hunter and gatherer. So it's like
yeah,
man was just almost not meant to have that much sugar at the end of the day, just because it's not that readily available. Even if you went to town and you found every bush known to mankind, you ate every single berry, you still would not hit that amount of sugar that you can get like in a single day at Starbucks.
yeah, but now it's almost like it's a drug. You get that like hit, that sugar hit,
Yeah.
like a crack addict.
Well, it's always weird too. I always think it's weird when I run across somebody who's like still drinking soda to this day and age, like it's going out of style. Not like they like, I had a soda once a month or so. I mean, like those people that you find that are drinking a soda like almost every day. And to me, it feels like,
Diet
yeah,
soda.
diet soda too, to top it all out. I remember in the 90s, that was like what we were always fed too. And like, it was like, did nobody know any better? Like, why were they just handing us kids like diet sodas here and there? But, and as a kid, you didn't know any better. You're like, oh, okay, it's a soda. Sure, I'll take it. I'm like, I'm not judgmental. I'm 10 years old. I don't care. But
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It's like, because to me, it felt like past the 2000s, like the idea of drinking soda is just like, it felt like that kind of just went away. But then every once in a while you run into people and it's like that they live and die by the soda. And you're like, what? You still drink this stuff like religiously? It's like, like, don't you know that like it just doesn't go anywhere? It's like, there's no purpose to it. It's like, it's useless almost at the end of the day.
yeah. Over here, I see a lot of people drinking coffee. It's not so much soda here, but it's coffee and all this like Frappuccino, Starbucks
Well,
crap they serve over
and
there.
that's just as bad, if not worse, sometimes because some of those things that they can make at a Starbucks are just massively overloaded, and people are paying $5 a day for one of those, if not more nowadays, and they're drinking them every single day, and it's just it takes a toll on them real quick too. It doesn't take long, just to add in those extra calories. I mean, and I always think about like if you ate that in natural food, if you ate like 1,500 calories in natural, that's a lot of food right there. You know what I mean? That could last you a half a day, if not more, depending on how much you eat. And if you're not really like someone who
Right.
eats a lot or not really working out, that could be almost your entire day's worth of food if you were just a small person.
Yeah, I don't think the species was adapted to handle that much sugar and all these, chemicals that they throw in these days. But I don't know. I keep seeing people they're just downing those drinks, downing that coffee, and I don't know that they're living on the after effects pretty much.
Yeah, it's just kind of sad when you see it. It's almost, but it's at the same time, it's like they do it to themselves. So I've almost come to this conclusion where it's like if you're not gonna help yourself, who's gonna help you? You know what I mean? Like you have a choice every single day, just like any of us. If it's do you want to make the right one, or are you gonna keep carrying on with what you're doing? It's because really, like a lot of times for a lot of people losing weight, if they just eliminate drinks, that mostly can cut out mostly everything. It's like, because most people, it's like they're really just getting big because they're drinking Starbucks, they're drinking sodas, and they're drinking alcohol and beers and wine and all kinds of stuff that's filled with other things. And if
Yeah.
it's like, that could be probably most of their calories in their day that's gaining them weight. It's not really necessarily the food necessarily. The food's not helping because it's now on top of it all, but really it's those drinks. A lot of people, like, they cut out drinking, and next thing you know, they lose 20 pounds in a couple of months.
Yeah, I think they start really young these days, because if you go even college or even in high school, the school lunches they serve is just crap. I mean, to put it bluntly. And then they're feeding them that stuff for 4 years, 5 years, whatever, and then they retain those same bad habits when they go out, into the real world, and it just sort of sticks with them. I mean, people make some changes here and there, but I don't know. I think it depends on the person. You either want to eat the healthy food or you don't. So I don't know. The other thing, I think it's because of the stress. I think a lot of people choose the sugar food, the high carb foods, because it helps them cope with their stress of daily life. If you're commuting to the city every day, or if you're studying really difficult courses in college, or whatever your schedule is, if you're doing that every day and you come home exhausted, your body starts craving those bad foods. So I don't know, it's tough, but people just have to make that change, and they have to do something for their health, because if they just keep doing that, then they're not going to last too long.
Well, I think too, it's like it turns into be like a treat. Be like, man, my day really sucks, but guess what? This donut I can always look forward to. And
yeah, I've earned
and it's like, and they get that's the thing they get, is they get the, well, I worked a 10-hour day today, so I earned this funky meal, and that's, that's, if you want to have that one funky meal a week or something like that, go ahead, but if you're doing that on a daily basis, it's a real bad habit and a slippery slope to get into. And it's kind of like, it's no different than like making the gas station stop every day. Like every day before work, you go to the gas station and you buy yourself a drink and you get yourself, some kind of snack, or even like a protein bar that you think's healthy, but it's really just probably loading on more sugar than you need, and all that kind of stuff. And it becomes a daily habit. And not only are you spending $5 a day, you're filling yourself up with stuff that you probably be better off just eliminating in the first place. But it's just always a tough call.
Oh, lost you again.
Did we pop off? I did hear a little beep go off on something, so that might have affected it.
Oh, okay.
But it was an Etsy sound, so maybe I sold something. I like to hear that one in the background.
Oh, well, that's good.
Yeah, you never know. It's like all those little ways to make extra cash, but yeah, just all kinds of ways of fitness and so on. I felt like I sort of lost my track of what we were going with somewhere, but you know how that goes.
Yeah. I mean, it's a different world now. People are doing a lot of computer work, all this technology-driven positions you have in the workforce now. So, people are working really hard, and they turn to these junk foods, because they're looking for relief, or they just don't know any better, whatever reason. So, but I'm sure the more education that's put out there, I'm sure people will be at least willing to make some sort of effort to improve their health.
Well, and I think
unless they don't just give a damn.
Yeah, they're at that point. And the other thing too, that like you don't think much of when you're in school, but it's like one of the most important classes is PE, and that's just the one that always gets kind of brushed to the side. But at the end of the day, I've almost kind of come to the conclusion that no, PE is probably more important than like math and science and a lot of other things, because that's your livelihood is, you're exercising. And, I remember even in my school, they started minusing it out by, you didn't have to take it by senior year in high school. And in some schools I know you didn't have to take it your last 2 years. Well, you don't think about it, but just like those 1 or 2 days, or every other day you're working out at school, and it doesn't seem like much, even if it's just the kids, running around playing basketball or something like that, that adds up, and it's always like, my favorite part is you can always kind of watch it. Like the second that PE sort of disappears and you look at like your other students, And you can watch just how fat somebody gets almost in about 2 years. Especially a lot of times with girls too, because they'll just stop doing any activities. I don't mean to say that in like kind of like just naming them, but I'm just pointing out what I saw is the second that they had to not do PE, next thing you know, like they're 19 years old and they're like almost 100 pounds heavier than they were when they were doing PE. It's weird how just you take away that little element, and people always want to blame it, like, oh, well, that was my teenage body, I could handle it. It's like, yeah, because you were working out like every other day or every day, give or take on how your school runs,
Yeah.
just those small things. Even if you didn't think you're working out that hard, you still had to go out and do the mile. You still had to go do those stairs or play some basketball or touch football or whatever games they have you doing, or you're in weight training or you're even playing volleyball, because that's what I did when I was in high school. I didn't know anybody. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna take the volleyball class, that sounds like fun. Because when did you really get into working out? I know we're kind of going full circle here, but did you get into working out when you were younger, or did that come to you a little bit later in life?
It came pretty young because I got inspired by watching Dragon Ball Z.
There we go. That is one of the most inspirational shows for working out, is good old Dragon Ball. And watching Gohan, like when he's in the hospital and he goes outside and he's doing pull-ups outside like the 34 or like maybe even 100-foot floor on like that, hospital he's at, just small things like that. Or watching Goku train in space, get ready to go fight Frieza and everything.
Yep. That was it for me, the space training.
It was kind of weird because for me, working out came like the second that I was outside of high school. It was all of a sudden, it was like, oh, I should start like working out. I mean, granted, it had PE classes and things like that. And you didn't think about it. It was kind of like just like what you sort of did. And it wasn't that I was unathletic. I mean, did spend a lot of times in front of the TV playing video games as a child, but that was just how it was. We didn't know any better.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Like, we played games, yeah, but we also played outside. Yep. Like, I would play baseball, I played tennis, I played football, I played cricket, if you know what that is. And we would just play outside, and we also played games here and there, but it was still a really important part of our lives. And now I just see that it's kind of like disappeared. I don't really see, guys saying, hey, we want to go shoot some hoops, or, anyone up for tennis. I don't really see people talking about that anymore. All it is, oh, I got to study for the test, or no, I gotta work that job. I got to put this many hours. I got to do this. I got to do that. Yeah. That whole physical aspect of our lives has just sort of been like pushed away.
Yeah.
So,
and it's kind of weird how that goes. Like, because as a kid, this sounds so weird. It's like we would play video games, but we'd also go out on the weekends and go out into the woods and play like, live action video games out there. Like, be like, oh, let's go outside and play Resident Evil, or let's go outside and play Star Wars or something like that. And I feel like that even in itself is kind of faded. I think also too, because everybody's afraid to let their kids just go run wild. Nobody has it where it's just like, oh, yeah, Billy, you can just go run down to your neighbor's house and go hang out for the entire day and then come on back for dinner, or stay for dinner there, whatever you decide. Just let me know, and that's it. And there's something to be said. It's that weird thing. It's all that little extra time that you can spend being active that adds up in the day. And as you get older, whether it be like, oh, I'm cleaning my house, or I'm going to go outside and do some yard work or something like that, like those little things add up. And especially for me, it's like I'm always like at a computer for like a lot of my day. Just because I'm either typing things, or I'm drawing, or I'm working on projects, or doing video editing, or putting podcasts together. And even that in itself kind of like takes a toll on me. I always like to make the joke that I get more injuries from my computer than I do from anything else I do. My computer beats me up way more than any workout I've ever done.
Yeah, it does for me too.
And I've even kind of switched where I switched my desk up and everything too, where I got a standing desk where I can kind of either sit down, stand. It's not one of those ones that changes instantly, but I just got a higher stool because my shoulder I started to get that mouse shoulder thing after a while. And I think it just didn't help that, like, using the mouse, using a drawing tablet, and just that all day long. And even now it's like, I've got it kind of fixed a little bit better, but it's still like I can always feel just that slight little bit of pain just from too much computer use probably in the day, even though it's much better. Because I was using like an old-fashioned, like 100-year-old dining room table, and it just wasn't the right balance for the chair and everything. So I had to get that all switched up.
Yeah, I found that if you're having that pain with your shoulder, I don't know if you know what a rebounder is. Those little mini trampolines.
Oh yeah. Like, you mean like the kind of like the aerobics type trampoline, like those ones, like the single person ones.
Yeah. If you just hop on that for a while and do those shoulder rotations where you have your fingers placed on your shoulder
Mhm.
and you just rotate it in circles,
While hopping.
that usually, yeah, that gets rid of the
Huh?
pain.
I'll have to try that out. Like, I found
Yeah,
some kind of stretches and so on that kind of seem to alleviate a little bit, like almost like where you put your hands back, like you're almost going to do like dips off a bench, sort of, and you kind of find that sweet spot and kind of pulling your shoulders back. I guess best. It's hard to explain it, but like that. But yeah, that is one of those ones I just noticed, and it's just I can always tell. Like if I'm working on a comic for a while, or especially even just like any kind of computer mouse work, and I got two mouses, so I can switch back and forth between my left and right hand. But next thing you know,
oh, there we go. Last thing I heard was
yeah.
comic.
Oh, it went out again. I just said like just by working on my comic and so on like that, and you're drawing and using the mouse. And on my computer, I have two mouses set up, so I can just instantly switch back and forth between a left and a right mouse. But even still, it's like next thing you know, it's like I'm pretty good with my left hand, but then it's like, well, I gotta do some more technical work here. I guess I gotta switch back to my right hand again. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's just those small things that add up. But yeah. But other than that, though, it's like, I guess that's just a little bit of sacrifice of using the computer. I guess once the robot does the computer for me, then I guess I don't have to worry about that anymore.
yeah. It'll probably change up how things are done. Like you might have like a holographic projection of, traditional pen and paper or pencil paper, or whatever, and you would be drawing as you would traditionally, but it would be fed into the computer when you're done.
Well, it's like I've even heard about they have those virtual reality ones where you almost like are in like you're in the virtual reality and it's almost like you can paint and it's all in there and you're moving your hand around like you're almost standing up at an easel and just going to
Yeah,
town and being able to paint. And it's like, huh, just that in itself is just
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. That's what I did when I did that trial
Well, that was
session.
one of them. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, you make a snowman and I was painting like the face and everything like that. So yeah, it's like as if you were there in person. So yeah, I'm sure they can have that where you're in front of an easel or a sketchbook or whatever medium you want to work with, and you can just bang it out right there, and there you go. You have your drawing.
Yeah, just small things like that just sound so neat and just things you can do. You could see how you could easily get lost in this virtual reality really quick.
Yeah, I'm waiting to see what's going to happen with this whole. I don't know if you've heard that theory that some scientists are speculating whether the whole universe is just a holographic projection.
Oh yeah, I have heard that before. Like if it is real or is just like is this just an illusion from a computer program almost that's just made up?
Yeah, that is very interesting because if you look at some ancient texts, like I know in the Indian culture that you have those, like ancient yogis and monks that say that yeah, reality is just an illusion, and none of this is real. And before people were just like, what are they talking about? This is a desk. I'm
Yeah.
here, etc. What are they talking about? So maybe they were referring to what we're starting to find out now that hey, maybe it's all just a bunch of tiny particles of energy that's being blasted at some unknown source, and it's giving us all these sensations that we define as reality. So I'm waiting to see where that goes because it's kind of interrelated with virtual reality because if they do make a whole new universe per se in a virtual interface, then technically that is a world that is fake. But if you go in, then it is real to you because you're experiencing it. Like if you jack into the Matrix,
Hmm.
right? It is real for you once you're in the Matrix, but it's not real. You can jack out whenever you want. But then the question is, okay, if it is an illusion, then where's this holographic projection coming from?
Yeah, exactly. Where
So,
are we in this virtual reality world inside a virtual reality world? It's almost that kind of thing.
where am
Then you
I?
almost get like that kind of thing, almost like when you look into two mirrors and you can just see forever into it, and like how far deep am I? How many dreams have I gone through? How
Yeah,
many inceptions are we down?
yeah. I also write some articles for David
Uh
Icke,
huh.
and he's like the big name for conspiracy and all that jazz. So he has this theory that uh, the rings from Saturn are projecting what you see here on Earth. At least for this galaxy, that's how it is for Earth, that the hologram is coming from Saturn. And it's weird. There was a scientist, I think his name was Berg or something like that, but he was startled that he found another ring. There's actually an additional ring of Saturn. If you search for it on the internet, you just put like NASA image of second ring of Saturn, something like that, you'll find it. NASA found that there's another ring from Saturn, and it's much, much bigger. It actually extends all the way to Earth, actually a little bit further than the Earth. So, I don't know. I mean, they can only see it with their technology. We can't see it with our physical eyes, but that's something I found interesting. They found that, and then here Ike has this theory that the hologram is coming from Saturn. The rings are projecting this world that we call as reality.
Oh wow, so, I gotta look that up when we're done here because that's pretty sweet. I never heard that one. There was that ginormous ring circling Saturn.
Yeah, just don't do it late at night because you'll
be up all night long. It'll affect my workout the next day.
Yeah, you won't be able to sleep. You'll have some weird nightmares or something like that.
Oh, most definitely. But well, we probably should get this show probably a little bit wrapped up. Whenever like the Skype breaks and you forget the time, you're like, oh yeah, it hasn't been that long. It's like, oh yeah, we also did like a second part that I kind of forgot about and don't see that time. So now we're at like Joe Rogan length of episode.
Yeah.
But it was great having you on the show. Man, we had so much cool things to talk about, beyond just working out and robots and future technology and, interdimension VR and all that good stuff. You'll have to come on the show again and we'll just have to go in deep on other things and so on. But
yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I'd enjoy it.
But really quickly, if people want to find all your good stuff, where can they easily find your stuff? I mean, I'll put some links in the description and so on to make it easy. Like I know you can get your books on Amazon and so on, but where would you send them to?
Well, they can get it on Amazon or they can go on my website, gslcreations.com. You can get it there. I have the ebooks there, but if you want a physical copy, you can just go to Amazon. You can also order it from Barnes & Noble, BAM bookstores, etc. It's pretty much available wherever books are sold.
Oh, pretty sweet. Can you get it like in Barnes & Noble? Like you got it in stores and everything? Or is it just online?
Yeah, they ordered a couple of copies. I don't know, how many they're keeping on store. I can't guarantee it's at every store, but, they have ordered from me. So
oh, that's pretty cool.
I'm assuming it's there.
Yeah, I got like that then. Also, what's the G and S stand for in your name? Or is that secretive?
Oh, the GSL? Well, that's just my name, GS Luthra. So the GS is my initial, and then you have Luthra. That's my family name. So then GSL Creations.
No, but the G doesn't stand for something? It's just an initial, or is it?
Oh, it's my first name. Gurmeet.
Oh, there we go. I always wondered that because I was always looking. I'm like, he's got the secretive, almost like like an SD Perry or something like that. Like the classic writer. Like you don't know what his first name is or his middle name, but he's got his last name there with his initials.
Well, it's kind of secret in itself because if people try to pronounce my name, they struggle.
It's just easier to be. You just be referred to as G.
G, yeah. So they're fine calling me just GS Luthra or just Luthra. So it works out either way. I don't have to worry about my identity being discovered.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. And other things like, when do you think your next book might be coming out, just so people can have something to look forward to?
I would say probably next year. I'm still putting things together, so when that comes out, I'll definitely let you know.
Sweet, dude. But make sure till then, check out Muscle Mass Without a Gym. I kid you not, one of the best books I've ever found on just working out, and I've read a whole lot of them. I mean, I've probably read 50, 100 plus books just because I like to pick things up. But this one here is at the top. I would recommend it if you need something to get you started, get that extra information, and make it simple, fun. You can do it anywhere. You don't need a gym, as we explained. Grab that book. It's really good. I'll put the links in the description to make it even easier for you. But till then, thanks for coming on the show. Make sure to go to oldmanorange.com for more podcasts, cartoons, comics, music, and more. I'm Spencer Scott Holmes with special guest
GS Luthra.
And we'll see you some other time. Thanks again for listening to the Old Man Orange podcast. Be sure to check out oldmanorange.com for more podcasts, comics, animations, videos, and a whole lot more. You can easily support the show by buying something from one of our Amazon links on the website or in the show's description itself. Doesn't cost you a penny, but every single thing you buy from there just by using that link to take you to Amazon helps us out a bit. You can also really help the show out, though, by spreading the word the good old-fashioned way. And rate and review us on all the sites that you find this podcast. Anything from iTunes to Podbean to Newgrounds, YouTube, you name it. Any little bit helps. Give a sub and share it to your friends, family, any jamoke you see out on the street. You let them know about Old Man Orange podcast. And be sure to check out the Old Man Orange comic book Pizza Boys on both Amazon and Comixology. Till then, we'll see you some other time.